Okay, we'll get started here in a second, but I did want to once again recognize our sponsors, Asher Standard. They're here both as a sponsor as well as David Stelzer spoke. We appreciate them as well as Lehman's. Actually, I got a phone call from Mark Koblenz from Walnut Creek Foods and Lehman's the same week saying, can you make canning lids for us? And that's where all this began. And it's about a lot more than canning lids, but they continue to support us. And then we have Timbercrest. Marcus is not here, so I can tell on him. Up until now, Marcus has donated this property and never charged the event for all the work they do. So it just tells you what he's about. So we wanted to recognize Timbercrest for that. So come back and camp. And then Benny Mast, my friend Benny, started a local trucking company, and he personally donated $5,000 to make this happen. I'm not going to tell you what this costs, but it's a lot. And then Junior, it was Kaufman, also a private sponsor that donated for the event. And then, of course, we have Walnut Creek Foods. They've supported us from the beginning. They have a nice store in what we call the Walnut Creek Flats. Great company, distribute nationally. They're still our largest canning customer. Okay, so Dr. Kelly was the doctor that initially diagnosed me with Lyme. She's done a lot of work. She's a doctor of chiropractic. And I'll just let you welcome her, and she's got a lot to tell you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming here to hear me speak about Lyme disease. It's good to be back at the Seed to Spoon and talk about such an important topic. Lyme disease has taken a huge toll in our community, and we need to get smarter in how we're dealing with it. My name is Dr. Kelly Farrell Emily. My patients call me Dr. Kelly. My husband and I, Dr. Bill Emily, we have been in practice for over 25 years, and our office is located in Bolivar, and it's called Emily Health and Wellness Center. I work as a holistic functional medicine physician, and I'm always seeking to find the root cause of what is contributing to people's illness. I got my passion for this many years ago after seeing so many patients in the office with unexplained pain and injuries that weren't responding to care. Today I'm going to talk about what we can do to prevent Lyme disease, the proper testing, and then just touch on treatment for both acute and chronic Lyme. I thought with the chilly winter that we were going to see less ticks, but that doesn't appear to be the case. I've already seen a lot of cases in the office of patients that have contracted Lyme disease, and it's in chronic neurologic illness. Neurological issues, musculoskeletal issues, so you're having a lot of pain, endocrine hormone issues, and also cardiovascular issues. It is the most common vector-borne illness. Some lesser-known facts about Lyme disease is that you can get it more than once. You don't build up immunity to it. And it can also be transmitted to the baby during pregnancy. This doesn't mean that your baby will be born with Lyme disease, But later on in life, if your child starts to have issues and you weren't all that healthy during your pregnancy, this may be something that you consider to get your baby tested for chronic Lyme, or your child or your infant, whatever the age is where they're starting to develop symptoms. Dr. Dowse has confirmed that this does happen during pregnancy. If you Google it, you're not going to find it. But he was telling me that the spirochetes, which is the Lyme bacteria, are attracted to the placenta. A lot of people aren't aware that they got bit by a tick. When diagnosed with chronic Lyme, people are often very puzzled about this. So if you're not aware that you've ever been bit by a tick, don't let that dismiss you for getting tested for chronic Lyme. Lyme can be transmitted during intercourse. This is something that I started to see with some of my chronic Lyme patients, that their spouses were now getting sick. So in my experience, it's more prevalent than reported. Right now, the CDC is saying about 500,000 Americans will get Lyme disease. As of May 2026, in Ohio, there's 137 reported cases, and in Tusk County, which is where my office is, there's 3. Well, I've seen more cases than that, so the reliability of that data is pretty poor. So what do we know about ticks? So ticks are tiny, they're wingless, they're 8-legged parasites, and they like to live in forests, grasses, trees, shrubs. They're often found on mice and deer. They prefer warm, moist, humid, and dark places, and they're active April through September. The tick that we're concerned about is the black-legged deer tick. That is the one that passes on Lyme disease. And the ticks feed on your blood, and they can also carry multiple other infections. Anaplasmosis, ehrlichiosis, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Bartonella, and babesiosis. In terms of those tick infections, the most common ones that I see is babesiosis. A lot of times when someone has Lyme disease, we're going to find that with it. And then in addition to the Lyme disease, the babesiosis, we see Bartonella. We can also see Bartonella on its own, and that is a little scary because we're not testing for that. That's not on the radar for a lot of physicians. I had a patient in the office this week who was bit by a tick. She removed the tick, and she got a big rash from it. So that was on Saturday or Sunday. She was at the doctor's office 4 days later, and her physician drew blood at 4 days, and later found out that she did not have Lyme disease. So I was very happy that she came into my office because I felt through my testing that she didn't have Lyme disease, even though she was tested way prematurely, but I strongly felt that she had Bartonella. And I'm going to talk about testing for co-infections later, but I just wanted to mention that they're a big deal from ticks as well. Animals such as deer, they don't get Lyme disease, they just transmit it. But mice, they do get Lyme disease, and mice are real buggers about that. Another thing about ticks is ticks are questers. So they're gonna sit on a low-laying branch or leaf, and they're gonna wait for you to come. And sometimes they'll wait for a few months for you to come. And when you walk by, they want a warm-blooded person, animal, and they're just gonna basically hook onto you. They are not dropping from trees. They're coming from the ground, and they are crawling up. So ticks are fast-moving, and they're tricky. You can get a tick go from your ankle to your hairline in 30 seconds. That's pretty fast. And the tricky part about ticks that just makes them separate from other insects is that their saliva contains an anesthetic agent, so it numbs you. That's why you don't feel the tick biting you. It also has an anticoagulant, so that stops your blood from clotting, so the blood can freely flow. And it also has an anti-inflammatory, so the area around the bite initially doesn't well up, and you're not aware of any irritation to that area. I have some pictures of ticks at different stages of life. And the young ticks are extremely dangerous because they can be really, really tiny. The nymph tick is the one that worries me the most because it can sometimes look smaller than a sesame seed. Here's another picture, and the smallest one there is actually a larva. And the good thing about those, because I've seen a lot of those on my patients this year so far, is they can't give you Lyme disease. They haven't had their first feed, and it's their first feed where they can get the Lyme disease bacteria. So the ones that we're worrying about are those nymph ticks. Prevention is key. We need to avoid ticks, and we need to avoid ticks biting us. We also need to remove them as soon as possible so that there's less time to transmit the disease. This is really frustrating to me at my office because most patients' plan with their kids is, we're doing tick checks, we're making sure, and the ticks are still getting through. I just don't think that that is enough. So I'm just gonna go over a bunch of treatment options so that this becomes something very easy for you to implement at your house. So let's start with some natural options. There's different options that you can buy at the store. These are all available on Amazon. And I'm gonna focus on the Wondercide tick repellent because I think that that one has shown that it is superior. So I saw this video of a husband and wife, they have it on YouTube, and they had put the Wondercide on the man's arm and they had found a tick and they had the tick crawl up the arm. And the tick avoided the spot of the Wondercide. They later put the tick into a bowl that was sprayed with Wondercide, and the tick became paralyzed, and then the tick died. It stopped moving. So that's a great thing. The problem with using natural remedies is they don't last long. So you need to reapply them every 1 to 2 hours. Here's a make your own recipe. In terms of natural protection, whether you're doing store-bought or you're making it yourself, it's the same oils that are being used. So lavender oil, cedarwood oil, lemon eucalyptus, and geranium oil are some of the top ones that we're seeing with different recipes and the different natural options that are available online. So again, with these, it's really important that you continue to reapply it. Natural yard treatments, you're basically using the same ingredients and you're gonna fill it up into a big yard pumper and you're gonna walk around and just spray it around the perimeter of your house. There's also something made from Cedarville, and they basically have these granules that you can put around the perimeter of your house, and these last about 2 to 3 days, which is easier than making your own. So chemical options. I'm definitely a fan of the natural options, but if you're living in an area and there is a high tick population, this is something that you should be considering. Permethrin is the leading chemical that we are using to prevent ticks on our clothing. The permethrin does kill the ticks. It creates a barrier that ticks can't penetrate, and you're only using this on your clothes. You want to apply it outside. You want to use it in a well-ventilated area. You want to make sure the chemical completely dries before you're going to use the clothes. And don't use it on anything waterproof because it can't get through. These at-home applications of permethrin are going to last 6 weeks or 6 washes. And again, they're only for your clothes, not for your skin. There is a company called Sawyer, and they're on Amazon. And you can get a bag from them. You put your clothing in it, and you send it to them, and they're going to treat it for you, and they're going to send it back. So this type of permethrin treatment that's done in the factory, now you're getting about 70 washes. So this is becoming a lot easier to be able to use these clothing on a regular basis. You can also buy pre-treated permethrin clothing online, and I think that's not a bad idea if you're someone who is readily being exposed to ticks. So these are things that we're putting on our skin, and it's DEET IR 3535 and Picardian. From what I have seen, DEET is probably my favorite. I don't think I would trust the 12-hour window that they put for its duration. I would stick closer to 6. But DEET can be used on smaller infants over the age of 2 months. And I saw some great videos as well on YouTube of people trying this out, people going out into tick-infested areas where they are covered with DEET and they're covered with nothing, and the DEET does make a difference. But when you compare a t-shirt sprayed with DEET to a t-shirt sprayed with permethrin, the permethrin will get 0 ticks. And let's say the DEET will get 6. So it's not foolproof. Chemical options for your yards. I just put one here. There's a bunch of things out there, but this Amdro tick spray for your yard, it's very easy to use. You basically attach it to your hose, and you're gonna go around the perimeter of your house, and it's gonna last a lot longer. Without rain, up to 6 weeks. You need to have a plan, and hopefully all of you leave here today and make a plan for what you're going to do to keep your yard clean. You need to have your grass cut short, and you don't want to have piles of debris and brush and leaves. You also don't want to have a lot of low-laying branches that are sitting there, because that's the perfect spot for those ticks to sit. You also want to try to deter deer, because they are the carrier that is carrying the ticks around. So you can put up a fence. You can also plant some deer deterrent plants that are out there. And then also, if you have a mouse problem, deal with your mouse problem. There are some tick tubes that you can buy, and they look like paper towel rolls, and it's stuffed with cotton sprayed with permethrin. And these tools are great because the mice will go and they'll grab the cotton balls and they'll go back to their nest with it. And then the ticks that are then feeding on the mice, they all die. So that's a good idea there. You can also, if you have a big forest at the back of your house or an area you know that is really dense with ticks, create a 3-foot barrier between your yard and that area. And gravel is a great idea for that. You can put mulch down, but you just want to make sure that you don't have wet mulch. We want to have a dry area. And what you wear is really important too. So the permethrin treated shoes and socks, and wearing light colored clothing to spot ticks more easily. The ticks aren't going to be repelled or attracted to color, but it certainly makes it easier for you to spot a tick. Tucking your pants into your socks is a really good idea, and I've seen people, there's a few funny videos of how much duct tape people have used on their legs, but a tick can't walk over sticky duct tape. They get stuck, so there's an option as well. I also want to talk about, we used to say, you know, cover yourself up as much as you can, but there's a new theory now with exposing your skin, because that's when you're going to feel the tick. You're going to feel the tick walking on you. You're not going to feel it biting you. We don't want to have ticks in our hair. They're very hard to diagnose that they're there. So if you catch a tick walking up your arm, you feel it, you can flick it off. So use the sprays, whether you're going to use DEET or something natural, and also make sure that you're regularly checking for ticks and that you're able to shower. So if you do find a tick, it is important that you remove the tick properly. You want to use a fine-tipped tweezer, and you want to remove the tick from the head and not the body. You don't want to leave any bits and pieces in there. And don't put anything on the tick. That will cause the tick to regurgitate blood into you, which is going to pass on more infection if that tick happens to be infected. And then you want to clean the area, sterilize it, and then just make sure that there's no more ticks. So Lyme disease testing. So the test for antibodies is what I'm going to recommend that we do. And you're checking for acute Lyme, which is the IgM, and then chronic Lyme, which is the IgG. There's also another test called PCR, and this is looking at the DNA of the bacteria being present in your body. And I don't really love this because if the load of the bacteria isn't high enough, you're going to get a false negative test. And we don't want false negative tests. The testing needs to be done 2 to 3 weeks after a bite. And any testing before that that says you don't have Lyme disease is invalid. You can use local labs to test for acute Lyme, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit moving forward. But if you do have chronic Lyme, that's a complete different testing strategy. So the local labs around here, so Pomerene, the Cleveland Clinic, LabCorp, Quest, and Altman, I would say they're pretty reliable at diagnosing a recent Lyme infection. This requires a prescription from your doctor, and it's going to take about 3 to 4 days for your doctor to get those results. There's a bunch of at-home testing companies now, and I don't recommend those. I did a lot of research on them, and we have enough issues with our local facilities giving us reliable results. To use some of these other companies, there's no reliability, there's no testing standard. I just wouldn't trust it. If you were to get a positive Lyme test and you're going to show this to your family doctor anyways, he's going to probably be, or she's going to be like, well, let's get a proper test done and just make sure. So my recommendation is a no on those. So in terms of acute Lyme, you want to be thinking a flu in the summertime. This is something that makes you feel really, really bad. Super tired, high fever, sore joints. Do not dismiss that if it happens, because if you're one of those people and that tick went up into your head area, you don't know that you got it. And then the other thing is this rash. So celebrate if you get a bullseye rash, because 40% of people, and this is per the CDC, they're not going to get one. And most doctors, and this is ridiculous, they think if there's no rash, then you don't have Lyme disease. And sometimes if there is even a rash, they're waiting till they get the blood work back to give you the treatment for Lyme disease. So if you have a rash, you have Lyme disease. You need to be put on doxycycline, and you need to be put on right away. If you don't have a rash and you have the summer flu, you still should insist on being put on doxycycline. Other acute Lyme symptoms is fever, night sweats, stiffness in the joints, the joint pain, fever, feeling extremely tired, headaches, swollen lymph nodes. People can develop issues with their heart, with chest pain. They can get neurologic infections like Bell's palsy, meningitis, and encephalitis. The most common one that I see is Bell's palsy. And the good thing is about Bell's palsy is your doctor is probably going to think Lyme disease with that one. And the symptoms could take 2 weeks to develop, or maybe even longer. And this is the real scary part, is that acute Lyme symptoms, they can go away on their own. So you may not have taken the proper treatment to kill the Lyme bacteria, but you felt better, so you thought that you were good. But then weeks, months, or years later, now you're not feeling good. I have seen some patients in my office, and this really makes me so upset for them and angry at the doctors that are doing this. So they're going to see a functional medicine doctor, such as myself, who's doing holistic treatments, and they are treating acute Lyme with vitamins and supplements. Do not do that. You have a window of opportunity to kill the bacteria, and you need to take advantage of that. So a lot of these patients, they feel better, and then they're coming in to see me 6 months later, and all of the Lyme disease symptoms are back, and they're worse. So take advantage of the initial time and get the proper treatment so you don't develop chronic Lyme disease. So chronic Lyme disease is untreated Lyme disease. It's Lyme disease that has persisted for more than 6 weeks in your body without the proper treatment, and it can be very challenging to diagnose accurately. And this is a great thing. So RFK is working hard on Lyme disease awareness, and he has started a government website, and I have it at the end if you guys want to take that down and look at it. And they've also started a condition, and it's called Lyme IACCI, and what this stands for is infection-associated chronic condition and illness. And the sad part of things is that 20% of people who were diagnosed with acute Lyme and treated properly per their physician will go on to have this condition. They are doing a lot of research on this right now, and that is a really good thing for all of us. So how do I get diagnosed for chronic Lyme disease? This is where I said it gets a little tricky. You cannot use the local labs to diagnose your chronic Lyme. They run the test, but the percentage of a false negative test result is way too high. A number of years ago, and I hear this was related to the Lyme vaccination that they were trying to release, this is a long time back, they had taken out some of the bans, and these bans, you need a certain number of them to be considered positive. So by doing so, they've created this big opening, and most patients don't get the proper results. I am currently using the German lab that Dr. Dowles is associated with, and that's called Armin Labs. I have all the testing kits in my office if that's something that you need to do. And I like this lab, and I'm exclusively using it at this point here because the results are quick. You draw your blood on a Monday, you UPS it to Germany, they process the results on Wednesday morning, and that next Thursday, usually sitting on my desk, is your results. IGeneX is the company that I used to use, and they are the US-based company, and they have a really good reputation, and their reliability is really good. They do the testing for co-infections just like Armin Labs does, but the price point and the time to get your results back is really significant. So for Armin Labs, just to do the antibody test for Lyme disease and the co-infections, you're looking around $840. Through IGeneX, you're looking about $1,900. And IGeneX takes 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks, for us to get the results. So they used to call Lyme disease the great imitator, and a better term for this is the great imitator and the great instigator of invisible illness. And that's how you have to look at chronic Lyme, is invisible illness. Chronic Lyme disease symptoms can mimic so many different things in your body. So it can also trigger an autoimmune response in your body. So you're having chronic pain, fatigue, your physician draws blood work and they're looking at the autoimmune panels and you're testing positive for that. That doesn't dismiss that it wasn't the chronic Lyme disease that triggered your immune system to then start attacking itself. Autoimmune conditions are a result of chronic instigation to your immune system, and you're genetically wired for it, and then you flipped the switch. So classic Lyme symptoms is, one morning your shoulders are killing you, and then a few days later your shoulders feel great and you can't walk because your right ankle hurts. Another real classic one is pain in the feet, and that pain lasts. It can also be pain in your knee. Chronic headaches, stiffness in the joints, most commonly that's in people's hands. And the emotional part of this is really big. People stop identifying with the person they used to be. They're having drastic reactions to things. They're overreacting, they're sad, they're crying, they're angry. They just don't feel like themselves. It can also cause issues with severe fatigue, where you don't have the motivation to do anything. It can cause issues with anxiety, depression, panic attacks. It can cause people to have a racing heart, swollen lymph nodes, rashes, digestive issues. So I think a lot of time what I'm seeing in practice is with the rashes and digestive issues is that those are due to co-infections. And not the tick-borne co-infections, but just co-infections from stuff that we're exposed to through our food and just lifestyle in general. We can get parasites or bacteria from our food. If you look into it, it's actually pretty scary on how tainted our food is. So if your system is sensitive, your gut barrier is broken down, then you're going to be an open pathway to getting a lot of those infections into your body and cause a whole nother presentation of things. And sleep issues, they're a big one as well. And the hard part about it, if you have sleep issues from chronic Lyme, nothing you do works. You can try every over-the-counter medicine, natural, holistic thing, nothing works. You just literally cannot sleep, and you're exhausted and you feel terrible, but you still can't sleep. And that's one of the things with my profession is unexplained pain. People just don't get better. They go see the chiropractor over and over and over again and they don't get better. If that's you, you need to take a serious look as to why you're having so much pain, because a lot of times it's a lot deeper than that. So Lyme disease in kids. So kids are at a greater risk just because of where they play, and a lot of kids are really unaware of what's going on with their environments. They're also less likely to get a bullseye rash. They can get a lot of upset stomach symptoms. They're still getting flu-like symptoms. And then sleepiness, maybe they're sensitive to light. One thing that happens to, unfortunately, too many kids with Lyme disease is this syndrome called PANS. And that stands for Pediatric Acute Neuropsychiatric Syndrome. And the number one thing that most patients or parents are bringing in their kids with is their kid became a terror. They're crying, they're having fits of rage, and they don't recognize their child. The other thing that I commonly see in the office is the kids are doing tics. They're rolling their eyes as a common one, maybe doing repeated motions with their fingers. So this is not Lyme disease attacking their brain. This is an autoimmune response to the basal ganglia, where the body is responding to this constant threat of the Lyme bacteria in the body. Complications also include obsessive compulsive disorder, germophobia. So I see this a lot too. Kids are constantly washing their hands. They're very scared of germs. Food sensitivities, the physical tics, as I said, the angry, aggressive, teary behavior, and also these kids tend to have sleep issues. They're no longer sleeping well. It's hard to fall asleep and stay asleep. Bedwetting is a big one too. And then these kids are struggling in school. So let's look at some treatment options. So at the beginning, this is really easy. It's kind of a no-brainer. You use antibiotics for it. That's it. And if you use antibiotics correctly, and this is where you need to be an advocate for yourself, hopefully you don't fall into that 20% of people who are developing chronic Lyme. We have a 1-month window for adults to get the antibiotics started. And this is usually doxycycline, by the way. If you have an allergic reaction to doxycycline, they will use amoxicillin. In kids under the age of 12, you're going to use amoxicillin because they can't tolerate doxycycline. A lot of doctors that have experience in treating acute Lyme, chronic Lyme, they are saying 6 weeks is the recommendation. I took some statistics here from the CDC, and these are what a lot of doctors are going to follow, and they're going to go on the low end of this. They're not jumping to the high end. So if you have Lyme arthritis, I often see this in people's knees. The knee swells up pretty big. They're going to give you a month of doxycycline. If you have the bullseye rash, 10 to 14 days. If you have neurologic Lyme, so let's say you've got Bell's palsy, they're going to do 14 to 21 days. And then Lyme carditis, 14 to 21 days, and sometimes they'll use an IV for this. This is where you need to push your doctor and be an advocate for yourself. And if they only want to give you 3 weeks at the beginning, that's fine. You go back after 3 weeks and you say, hey, I'm not fully feeling better. I can still see that there's signs of an infection here, and push to get that next 3 weeks. And if your doctor isn't willing to do that, I'm local, so you reach out to me. I can't prescribe it to you, but I can find you a source that can prescribe it. So I also recommend that people add in additional supplements to boost their immune system. The stronger your system is, the better you're going to be able to address the Lyme bacteria. And I just also wanted to talk about the 72 hours. If you catch the bite within 72 hours, you can use 1 dose of the antibiotic. I think it's too risky. I don't trust it. So there's some studies that have been done, but the studies that have been done are also from the CDC, and I don't believe half of what they're reporting is truly what we're actually seeing in our area. So if you're not getting it diagnosed at the beginning, it gets more tricky. And what we traditionally do in this country, if you do get diagnosed with chronic Lyme, is you're going to go on a chronic length of antibiotics, sometimes months at a time. And these people feel better. Dr. Julian Dowse has talked about this. Initially, you do feel better. The problem is you don't stay feeling better. And every time you go down that pathway of giving the antibiotics for extended amounts of time, the Lyme gets smarter. The bacteria build up a bigger biofilm, and they become harder and harder to treat. Natural treatment for Lyme, it can be really effective for a lot of people. So we're using herbs to upregulate your immune system. We're using some natural products to basically stimulate your immune system to start paying attention again. What often happens is you're under attack for so long, the body just gave up. Your white blood cell count looks good. A lot of the markers of infection in your body are gone, even though you're still sick. And the other thing with this is these people who are dealing with their immune system being weakened, they think that there's nothing that they can actually do functionally through their diet and exercise, and I'm going to talk about a lot of those things. If you're one of those people and you can't get better, the hypothermia treatment that Dr. Dowse has talked about, it works. I've seen great results for it, and that is great to have that as an option if you're that person who is being clobbered by chronic Lyme. But I recommend that you start with some easier things first, and maybe you're one of those people that you're able to naturally get your immune system to get back on track and stop producing all of that inflammation from the untreated bacteria. So some other factors that are affecting treatment. So we talked about the co-infections. One of the things with the co-infections, they're really hard to diagnose. So we don't have like a great panel that I can send you to Altman or Pomerene to look for those. The testing is very sporadic, and it's also really expensive. So if you think, and this is probably a good idea for a lot of people, if you're not feeling good and you started antibiotics, use the Armin lab test and get tested for the acute Lyme factors through them, because they're testing for everything, and I think that is the best way to do that. Other things are heavy metals and mold. So mold is a really big deal. People will have a mold issue in their house and no one's doing anything about it. Some people go and they scrub away the mold themselves. So if you have mold in your house, you need to be paying attention to that mold. And you need to make sure that you're doing the proper remediation for that mold. And if that is indeed you need to take the precautions and put on the safety equipment so that you're not inhaling that mold in your body. Some people will get a mold infection and they've got a terrible cough. They've got terrible sinus issues, chronic headaches. But some people, for whatever reason, don't get any of those symptoms, but they still have the mold in their body. Another thing with mold is it will severely weaken your immune system, and it can make it very difficult for you to treat other infections like chronic Lyme disease. I had a patient a number of years ago. He was 14 years old, and he had come to see me after being treated by a lot of other doctors in the area. And he had really done it all. He had done the antibiotics for an extended period of time. He had done the herbs. He had gone back to antibiotics. They could not get this kid better. So after me examining him, I decided that we need to do more extensive testing. So we did a mold test through this company called Mosaic, and it's a mold test, a mycotoxin test. And we were able to discover that indeed there was 3 molds that were targeting this young kid. The parents had just built a new house 4 years ago and thought there's absolutely no way it could be in their house. So they went hunting and investigating, and they eventually found it. So the room where this boy was sleeping, where he had his head abutted, they hadn't put some sealant. So between the siding and his bedroom wall was just all black mold. Once they removed this boy from the house, got their home properly treated. It was a big nightmare. But this boy, within 3 months, was totally functioning again. He couldn't get over the chronic Lyme because of the mold. I usually think, in a lot of cases, you deal with the chronic Lyme infection and the other infections will go away. And sometimes, if you have a terrible situation with your gut, we need to fix your gut permeability issue first, because you're not absorbing the vitamins, you're not absorbing the minerals. So you're having a harder time basically using the supplements to make yourself feel better. The other thing with molds, and this is a very interesting one to understand, is not everyone in the house is going to get sick. Maybe one person, maybe it's a few people, but usually it's not everybody. So the stronger your immune system, the less likely you are to be affected by mold issues as well. That test, by the way, through Mosaic Labs is under $300. It's not too expensive. So heavy metals can be an issue, and they interfere with how your cells normally function. They target your nervous system, and it lowers or damages your mitochondrial function. Your mitochondria are what give your cells energy. And if you don't have good mitochondrial function, nothing is working up to where it should be working. Everything is low functioning. It also creates oxidative stress. This damages cells, lowers your immune function, and it also interferes with hormone signaling. In terms of heavy metal testing, there's companies that will look at your hair to do testing. I have one company in particular that I use a lot of, and it's a hair and it's a saliva test, and it's under $400. This company gives me so much information about the team. So I know this patient has chronic Lyme, but what else do they have? What else is going on with this person's body? The more information you have about all the co-infections, the easier it is for you to develop a game plan to get this person feeling better. So what can I do to impact my overall health and make it better? So some basic things, and people don't sleep enough. 5 or 6 hours of sleep at night is not enough. And kids need way more sleep than this. So make sure that you're prioritizing sleep, and also make sure that you're prioritizing exercise. Being a busy person or having a busy job really doesn't dismiss the need for you to do continuous exercise. The recommendation is 150 minutes per week. And I'm also a big advocate of people lifting weights. Keep your structure strong and support lymphatic function. Your lymphatic system is extremely important. If you have a bad lymphatic system, your immune system will be compromised. Your lymphatic system is how your body flushes out the toxins. It's like little tiny toilets being all over your body. So when your immune system finds an infection, it goes and it grabs it, and it takes it to your lymphatic system, and then your body needs to carry that infection out. There's a lot of things that you can do for lymphatic function. There's an exercise called the Big Six. It's on YouTube that you can watch it. And basically it's a bunch of rubbing and tapping. And they recommend 10 times. And you're going through these different spots, your stomach, you're going behind your knees. And then after that, you're kind of moving up and down, you're jumping. So that is something you should be doing on a regular basis. People can use a rebounder. You can also use a vibration plate. I have my vibration plate in my bathroom right in front of my sink, because that is a place I am every single day, and it is there, so I have to use it. At our office, we have something called an Arctic Star machine, and this is a lymphatic machine, and it is really cool. It is a wand, and there's 2 of them, and it uses red light as well at different times, but you basically pump the lymph through your body, and if your lymph is stuck somewhere, the wand sticks to that area. I can think of a few cases. This one patient of mine in particular, she did not want to spend the money to go get the lymph treatment done. She did everything on her own, and I believe that she did it. She could not get better. I finally begged her to go do it 4 times, and she's probably the biggest advocate for it because it completely changed everything with her. It got her immune system back up to fighting. She had a case of chronic Epstein-Barr, and her immune system just kicked right in and was finally able to pull it all together and put the Epstein-Barr back into remission. So we need to get plenty of sunshine. Don't be scared of the sun. Definitely don't want people burning, but going outside with no sunscreen, no sunglasses, and connecting with the sun is really important. Sunshine at the very beginning of the day and end of the day can be the best times for that. And drink enough water. This is another big one. So half your weight in ounces. So if you weigh 140 pounds, you're about 70. So men need more than 70 ounces, and women could use a little less. And if you're terrible with drinking water, consider using electrolytes, and not ones with fake sugar. Get a more natural one. So in terms of other things, having a regular bowel movement. You should be having a bowel movement every 2 to 3 times a day. Every few days. That is not normal. Your body will be reabsorbing your toxins, and your body is working hard to get those toxins out. And this is another one. Brush your teeth. Make your kids brush your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth, you will have bacteria in your mouth that will make you sick. That's it. It will happen. It's just a matter of time. And get them professionally cleaned. I think twice a year is a good recommendation for that. And also, let's eat healthy. And just trying to simplify what healthy eating means. Obviously, choosing non-GMO organic foods when possible. Eat a variety of fresh fruits and vegetables a day. If you are canning, don't be adding sugar and salt. Keep it simple, keep it pure. Choose whole grains instead of refined grains, and choose healthy carbs. So my favorite carbs are fresh fruit, sourdough bread, rice, and potatoes. There could be times in your life where you're gonna want to avoid carbohydrate if you're trying to lose weight. But denying your body of carbohydrates for an extended period of time, it causes hormone issues, and it will eventually cause your metabolism to crash. So that isn't a good theory on what you're gonna do indefinitely. Avoid seed oils. These seed oils, they are terrible. They change your cell structure. They make you more likely to have disease and cancer. And they are all over our grocery shelves. I wrote them down there, the ones that we need to watch for. You know, you can find organic products, like organic hummus, and it has organic safflower in it. So start looking at the ingredients. Once you know the products that you're gonna buy, it makes it really easy because you're just going to the store and you're buying it. But initially, as you're converting to get rid of the seed oils, it could be a little tricky. Eat lean proteins, limit added sugars and salt, and avoid fake sugar. You know, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, those sugars are in there are bad for our cells. They may not be calorie elevating, but it's not worth it. You can get soda that has stevia or more natural products in it. All right, so some healthcare thoughts. So I'd say when warranted, use less medication. Look for the root cause, not a mask. And use good quality supplements, not all created equal. I'm a big believer that we should be taking vitamins. We cannot get it from our foods. Even the best of diets, it's too tricky to get it. And I will get patients that come into my office, and a lot of these patients have dealt with chronic illness, so they have a list of 50 things that they're taking. And that's not what I'm suggesting. But but there are some key things that you need to be taking every single day. Vitamin D3 with K2, everyone should be taking it. We don't get enough sun to warrant not taking it. If you get your vitamin D level checked in the middle of summer, it'll probably be between 40 and 50. We want those levels in the 70 to 80 range. I also recommend that you take a multiple vitamin. I personally take Mitocore from Orthomolecular. It is a great multiple vitamin. The Bs are methylated, so they're easy for everybody to be able to use that. And they also have antioxidants in it to stop the cell damage. Another great option through standard process is Catalin. It's a whole food vitamin. They have a chewable form for kids. It is high quality. I also think people should be taking omega-3 fatty acids. And if you're someone who's been dealing with a lot of immune system issues, look at taking herbs such as artemisinin, cat's claw, Japanese knotweed, echinacea, and myrrh. But I would recommend you talk to someone who knows what they're talking about if you're starting to take those. Some of those can be really aggressive on your body, and it can cause a Herxing reaction where your body can't keep up with what's happening, and it makes you feel really bad. And then sometimes people need to be taking probiotics for gut health. So if you have a lot of digestive issues, that's something that you should be figuring out as well. So I just wanted to end in talking about some of the myths with Lyme disease. So Lyme disease can affect people of all ages, and not just those that spend time outdoors. The incidence of this is happening in a lot of cities. And the bullseye rash, I just can't stress this enough. You know, the bullseye rash does not mean, no bullseye rash does not mean that you don't have Lyme disease. So that is something really important. And then just focusing back on, if you're not properly treating, you may initially still feel good, but it didn't go away. And yeah, so the Lyme disease needs to make sure that we're taking the proper course of antibiotics. And then the whole tick transmission thing. When I was doing research for this, I found so many people saying that, I even found 48 hours. So if the tick's not there for 48 hours, you didn't get Lyme disease. So I settled on 24 because I also saw a lot of that, but I don't believe any of that. If you have a sick tick and it gets into your bloodstream, it can pass on infection. It doesn't need more than 24 hours. And then again with the testing, make sure that you're getting tested properly with the right labs. Most time when I order a blood panel for Lyme disease, it comes back positive. So that tells me that most of the ticks around here are carrying Lyme disease and that they are sick. So never ever dismiss a tick bite because you didn't see anything happen. It's just not worth it. So that brings me to the end of everything that I wanted to say today. I hope that I was able to educate everyone, give you a prevention plan on what you can do to protect your family, and some ideas if you're struggling with that. My office is in Bolivar, and I am always around if you want to call me. I am free to discuss and come up with a game plan and just helping people to feel better. Thank you, and have a great day.
Finished early.
I did.
mean, you're a trendsetter. Thank you. Okay. How are we all doing? We've only got a couple more hours, and this whole thing will wrap up. Okay, next up, we have our friends Cody and Michelle Knox, and they're very successful on YouTube. So how many of you watch them on YouTube? Looks like we've got a bunch of fans. So please welcome Cody and Michelle. They said I was supposed to talk. They're miking her up. So what do you want me? Have any questions? No questions. I could be really bold and say, I know all the answers. I just don't know what the questions are. That was supposed to be funny. Okay, here they are.
Cool. So what's up there?
That.
There we go. Okay. Your turn.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. Good to see all your faces, lots of familiar faces this year, which is fun. We are Cody and Michelle Knox from the YouTube channel More Than Farmers. We have 4 kids, ages 12, 11, 10, and then a 5-year-old. And we live on a 5.5-acre homestead and grow a large percentage of our own food in our gardens and on our pastures. And we just love all things nature and adventures. And we, on purpose today, don't have too much information because we want to interact with you guys. So be keeping those questions in your back pocket to bring up at the end.
Yeah. So, was that supposed to be the next slide?
Yep.
To understand the rest of what we're going to say in this talk is about how to homestead and avoid overwhelm and burnout, and how to homestead without losing your mind. So to understand the rest of what we have to say, you're going to need to understand where we're coming from. So I want to tell you a little bit of our story. Neither of us grew up homesteading, but we did both grow up in the country. Michelle has been gardening her whole life. She learned what she knows from her mom, who learned from her mom, who learned from her mom, and so on and so forth. I grew up, we had a couple horses. I grew up on a dead-end road out in the hills of North Carolina, and I did all the things that you can imagine a young boy would do in that situation, but didn't have any experience gardening or anything like that. When we got married, Michelle did some gardening at her mom's house, and I eventually built a raised bed for her. I still thought it was kind of dumb, the gardening thing, raising food for yourself. I also thought it was dumb to eat healthy food, but some really bad teeth problems, and then the weight of responsibility of having our first son started shifting my thinking. And we got introduced to Joel Salatin through some family, and it was all downhill from there, for sure. Yeah. And so you also got to understand my personality is like all or nothing. So whether it's running a 50K in the rugged hills of Ohio, or biking across Indiana, or homesteading, I'm all in, and I get obsessed about stuff. Michelle was excited about the homesteading thing when we started getting into it, but she is definitely not as quick to get into change as I am. So she was also somewhat just kind of along for the ride. And when we decided we wanted to get into this, we could not afford to buy a decent house on a nice piece of land. We found a 5.5-acre piece of property that was overgrown, complete with junk piles on it and a swamp smack in the middle of it. There was an old rundown house on it that had to be torn down. And then we ended up building a small house on top of the original basement there. We built that from scratch, built it ourselves. It took us 2 years to finish that house. And for the first 6 months, we lived in a drafty old camper with a 1-year-old and a newborn. And once it got too old to live in there, we moved into the unfinished basement of the house we were building, and it really honestly wasn't much better than the camper. We had to run a big, loud mobile home heater just to keep it warm enough. Our electric bill went through the roof, like literally there was no insulation above us. It went through the roof. And it was just one room. We had no shower, had no toilet down there. We were just surviving, like for real. I was still working a full-time job. I was working on the house nights and weekends, and Michelle was taking care of 2 babies, trying to cook from scratch without a real kitchen. In the spring and summer, when we were living in the camper, we were dumb enough to try to start a garden at the same time. And it was a very pathetic outcome of that garden as well. And let it be known here also that Michelle really did not want to build a new house. That was my idea. But I convinced her that it was like going to be the only way where we were going to able to get to this lifestyle that we wanted to get to. So we did it. And then as soon as the house was done, we dove like headfirst into homesteading. And our goal was to grow and sell enough produce at farmers markets and do value-added products and all the things to make enough money so that I could quit my day job. And if you've tried doing something like that, you know how hard it is. We got a milk cow while we were also getting that all started. And we got a couple hundred chickens so we could sell eggs. We did succession plantings, we grew lots of extra stuff, and just kept up just a constant grind. Through the house building especially, and then even after that, we put our marriage on the back burner. It didn't take long for that to catch up to us. Looking back, I'm not even sure how we managed to do it all. But then as I think about it enough, I realize that basically we just worked ourselves to the bone and we screwed up our priorities enough to make it happen. We had another baby during that time. Michelle's health tanked. She ended up with adrenal fatigue. Our marriage ended up on the rocks. It just took us way too long to figure out what we were doing was not working. And we came to the place where we realized we had two options. It was either to give it up altogether or to somehow come up with a solution to make it work for us. We ended up doing the latter. We scaled back on a lot of things. We quit selling at farmers markets, and we decided to focus on growing things for just our family. And we went through a couple rounds of marriage counseling and got ourselves back on the right path. It is still a very long journey. It's been 12 years since we started building that house, and we are still healing and rebuilding from that time. And we figured out ways to make our homestead more efficient and make it sustainable for us, and that is where our YouTube channel was born. We had heard of other homesteaders burning out and quitting because of how hard it was, and we wanted to share what we learned so that hopefully more people could live this life sustainably.
So what finally helped us to stop grinding and reevaluate everything about our lifestyle was figuring out the why behind why we started homesteading in the first place. So we just stopped and went back to our why. And so often I believe that we're not necessarily, people who are overwhelmed aren't necessarily doing too much. They're just doing too much of the wrong thing. They're doing things that are outside of their calling, things that are not, maybe even things that they're not designed to do as an individual. And those are the things that drain us. Burnout can also mean that a season is changing for you. Maybe you have a new baby and you just have to step back and reevaluate. Or like us, all of a sudden our kids are getting close to being teenagers and all of a sudden they have agency and we have to just completely figure out reevaluate our parenting strategies. And so that's just the start of another season, and sometimes something that worked before doesn't work anymore, and that is okay. So our why, everyone's why, is going to be unique to you. So each person's why for homesteading is going to be different, but the same principles still apply. So to clarify what I mean by this, here's the why behind why we started homesteading. So first and foremost for us, we wanted to eat nutritious food to heal our bodies because we both had some pretty serious issues going on. I had horrible cystic acne to the point that when I laid down on the pillow at night, it hurt so bad. I also had lots of hormone issues. Obviously, that was probably what was causing the acne. Cody had a lot of fatigue and tooth issues and was just overall not well, not living his best life. So we wanted nutritious food, and we very quickly found that buying local organic food was too expensive. We just could not afford it. Number two, we wanted a safe and wholesome environment to raise our kids in, and we felt like a farm was really what fit the bill for that. And we definitely had a dream of Cody coming home from his job, but that was not our main why. Recently I did a reel for Instagram telling a bit of our story, and there's only so much you can say in 60 seconds, and so there were some misunderstandings. That's okay. Some people thought it was extremely lame that after our season of burnout, we quit everything on our homestead that made money. So we sold our chickens, we quit doing farmers market, we quit selling to restaurants, and we just focused on growing for ourselves. And they were like, so you quit all the things that made money? That's lame. And I understand why they thought that, but making money on our homestead was not the main reason that we started in the first place. We wanted healthy food and a good environment for our kids. And so my point is we realized that we were working outside of our calling and passion and trying to force something to work that really wasn't serving us. And that was where the burnout was stemming from. And so we took a step back And after taking this big step back, it was so amazing because we rediscovered our joy of living off the land. It was like we came back to the path and remembered why we had started in the first place. And now that we have stepped back, we've actually gone far beyond where we started from in the first place, simply because we refound that joy and motivation. And so now we homestead for ourselves only, and then our social media business is what pays the bills. And some people think that they're like, oh, so the only way you can homestead is because you are these bougie, silly content creators. And my response to that is our content creation business is literally our full-time job. We put more time into that, more hours into that than Cody did at his full-time job before he came home. And so my point is that you can have a full-time job and homestead. It's all about creating a lifestyle, creating a homestead that is serving you in the season that you're in. All that to say, if you're overwhelmed, take a minute and find your why again. So another thing that ties in really well with figuring out your why for what you're doing is identifying negative emotions that you have around homesteading. And I'm assuming that if you are feeling overwhelmed and burned out, there's some negative emotions going on. This is a quote that completely changed my life. Every emotion that you have is stemming from a belief system. Once you identify the belief that is causing the negative emotions, you can speak truth over that and watch it totally transform your life. A quick example of this, if you're having the negative emotion of homesteading is too hard, the truth that I speak over this emotion is I don't have to do it all. Yes, homesteading is hard, but I can choose what I want to do on my homestead, and I can skip what I don't want to do. And I don't have a wash line, and no one can send me to jail for that. I don't hang my clothes out. There's so many negative Nancys online that would like to send me to jail for that, but I can choose what I want to do on my homestead, what is serving me in the season that I'm in.
Run over a couple emotions here. The one that I wanted to mention, one of the most common negative emotions in homesteading is fear. Fear for our children, fear of the government, fear of the apocalypse. Fear is great to motivate you to start something, but it sucks at keeping something sustainable.
Yeah.
Fear drains you and it sucks the joy out of life. I can admit that fear was one of the big reasons that I wanted to start homesteading. I wanted to get off the grid. I wanted to grow my own chemical-free food and be prepared for World War III. Those aren't necessarily wrong things to do, but being motivated by fear will not sustain you. You just get tired of it after a while. Fear is just totally draining. We realized this after a while, and we started shifting our focus. We started looking at the good we could do for our family instead of seeing the bad that we were trying to get away from. Joy and an appreciation for beauty is a much, much better long-term motivator. The other thing that I think we need to realize as homesteaders is that scared people are easy to control. Don't kid yourself that your fear is going to keep you rational. Fear is almost always irrational, and trust me, I would know. And now this is just an example. I'm not saying this is the way it is, but this is an example. A lot of homesteaders' fear is that the government is going to try to do something with their kids or with their food or something like that. If you're reacting to situations out of fear, who's to say that it isn't set up by the government to get you to react in that certain way, to get you to do what they want anyways? So I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but what I'm saying is fear will not lead you to make rational and wise decisions. You will just be reacting all the time. It's not driven by common sense, and it's not something that you can trust. Fear has to be driven out by truth and love, and I don't want to turn this into a sermon, but I believe there is only one way to free you from fear. It's a deep knowing that there's a God who loves you and will take care of you no matter what. It's only when you shift your focus from fear that you can start seeing things clearly and make actual rational decisions. And I'm still learning to deal with fear myself. If you watch our YouTube channel, you'll hear me talking about some of the struggles I have and getting help through online therapy. Those are not just paid ads for us. That's real life for me, and I'm willing to share that with hundreds of thousands of people online because I do want to see anybody who's in the same kind of struggle to find the help that they need.
Amen. Amen. An emotion that I faced when we first started homesteading, and honestly, I still feel this at times, and this contributed to my burnout, was shame and embarrassment and the feeling that I needed to prove myself. So we started homesteading back before it was cool. We've been homesteading for 12 years now, and before COVID happened, there was a lot of people that just honestly didn't see the value in it. And I could see the looks on people's faces like, aw, you know, Farmer Brown, so cute. You guys, you know, have a little McDonald farm. We literally had people tell us that. And others just straight up couldn't understand why we would bust our butts growing tomatoes in our garden when we could go to the store and buy them for cheaper there. People just didn't get it. I felt like the weirdo. And I felt like I needed to prove that what I was doing was worthwhile and that I was actually happy and successful. And when I had people over for a meal, I didn't even always serve my homegrown food because I was afraid that the homemade butter would look too yellow, or it would taste like the cow fell in, or all the things that people say when they're mocking it. And if I made a mistake in the garden or just on the homestead, whatever, I just felt like I needed to hide it, because I didn't want people to think that I was not successful. And I didn't want them to know that I had slaved away over that potato patch all summer long and then had to go to the store and buy my potatoes. And it was exhausting to not be able to be transparent with the people around me. So I finally traced this emotion back to the belief that I was not good enough, that just me, on my own, the real me, aside from all of my accomplishments, I felt like I wasn't good enough, and I felt like I needed validation from others to prove that I was. And I started speaking truth over that flawed belief system, and my life drastically shifted. And amazingly enough, a lot of that overwhelm lifted as well. I cared less about the naysayers. I started taking pride in what I was doing rather than trying to hide it. And I became secure enough in my calling that I was the one who suggested that we do a YouTube channel to share with the world what we were doing and teach people how to grow food. And that is transformation. I think it's amazing, it's beautiful. I was blown away when our first video took off, and I realized that I was not the only weird one in the world, that there was like hundreds of people that actually thought what we were doing was cool, and I wasn't the freak after all. I learned that there is zero shame in making mistakes and needing to go to the grocery store. I'm so thankful that we have the store to fall back on. There's no homestead police out there that are able to tell you if you're a valid homesteader or not. So if you come to me and you say that you're not making any mistakes in your homestead, I'm probably not going to believe you, because any keeper of the land is going to know that we're working with living, breathing things, not machines. And so crazy things are just going to happen all the time. This year, cucumber beetles have decimated my garden. They came out of nowhere. This has never happened to me before. And it's just proof that you can't control nature. It's just part of what we do.
So that's a lot of the emotional things behind all this, I guess. We're going to go over a couple practical things real quick in ways that we've simplified our homestead to make it more streamlined and easier to run, to make this life possible for us in the season that we're in. I'm going to talk about some of the animal stuff. Michelle's going to talk about some of the stuff in the garden. First of all, the way we've simplified it with the animals is that we just don't raise every kind of animal. When we first started homesteading, we wanted to do all the things. At this point, we're raising beef, broiler chickens, chickens for eggs, and a few ducks. That's it. We used to have a milk cow, but we gave that up because it wasn't making sense for our family anymore. It was honestly probably my favorite part of our homestead, and it was really hard to give up, but we have 2 people in our family that are dairy intolerant, and yes, our cow is A2A2, she's grass-fed, Guernsey, like
Checks
all the things.
boxes.
But yeah, checked all the boxes, but it still, we have some dairy intolerance issues, and we were getting 35 gallons of milk a week with once a day milking, and it just didn't make sense for us anymore to have that much milk and not be able to drink a lot of it. So we sold our cow to somebody else, and actually we're still getting milk from that person, so I can get the milk that I need. We don't raise pigs, so we just don't eat pork, and that's okay. We raised turkeys one year, but we decided it wasn't necessary for our stage of life, so we eat a nice big chicken for Thanksgiving dinner. It's perfectly fine. We raised free-range geese for a while, and they terrified our kids. They would hiss at them and run after them. So we don't raise geese anymore. We don't have quail, guineas, rabbits, or sheep, or goats. Those things are all totally fine in and of themselves. And if that's where you're led to go, then by all means do it. And there will probably be some of those that we end up raising in the future. We actually really want to get dairy sheep once we find a new property and I can put up new fences and everything. But for now, it's just not a good fit for us. And we can raise all of the meat we need for our family of 6 for an entire year with beef and chicken, and that's enough. I also really simplified my chores. A few rapid fire things here. Just simplified my chores, came up with systems to make things faster. I put in water hydrants in key places around the homestead so I wasn't hauling water as far. I switched from a low Salatin style tractor to a tall one so that it was easier to get in and take care of the birds. Their feed and water hang up in there so I don't have to pick anything to move it. I just move the pen, everything comes along with it. I have a Happy Farmer egg wagon for our egg layers that's easy enough for our 12-year-old to move around the pasture. That has an automatic door on it, so I don't have to go out there every morning to let them out and every night to put them back in. I do rotational grazing for my cows, but instead of moving fences for them, I have permanent paddocks set up that are connected to one area in the front where their water and minerals can be, so I don't have to move their water. I just move them, I just open one gate, close another when I'm ready to rotate them to the next spot. And along the way, when we were doing farmers market and stuff like that, if there was something that I could see that spending a little money on would save a lot of time, I did it. I bought a sticker gun for putting stickers on egg cartons and milk jugs instead of handwriting everything on there. I bought pre-printed egg cartons instead of writing everything on there. Our animals all have feeders and waters that hold enough feed and water for a couple days. So like this weekend, this week while we're gone for a few days, we have somebody kind of keeping an eye on things, but they actually don't have to do any chores while we're gone. The animals have enough food and water for while we're gone. So a lot of our chores on a daily basis are just checking on things and then refilling as it's needed. And there are a lot of things that we could do to make it better. Trust me, hundreds of thousands of people let us know in the comments that we could do things a lot better. But the point is to look where your biggest pain points are or your biggest time suckers, and then look for ways to make it smoother, and that's what it's going to make it work for you. And it might even be something that you just need to cut out altogether, and that's okay. There are no rules for how you need to homestead. There are none, and you don't have to do all the things. You can start where you're at and simplify, start with the basics, and then as you master some of those things, you can add others in if you want to.
Yes. So one of the major things that I shifted after burnout, or actually during burnout, was I simplified my garden. I only grew foods that our family actually loved. And this might sound odd, but if you need permission to quit growing that eggplant that your mom always planted, this is your permission. I try to not grow foods that I have to fight my family to eat. I focus on growing foods like potatoes and carrots and squash that are calorie dense, that will actually make a huge dent in the calorie intake that my family is needing over the winter time. So vegetables that are really filling, often root crops, are going to be fitting this bill. So I was talking with Ruth Ann Zimmerman last night, and she said something very interesting to me. She said that she has noticed one thing in common about all of the homesteaders that actually manage to continue living this lifestyle for the long haul, the ones that have been doing it for a long time. She said they all have simplified diets. They have learned to only grow the necessities and really thrive and appreciate the bare necessities. You can spice it up with all kinds of different ways, but sticking with those basics is what makes it doable and sustainable. Cody will talk about our cold room more in a little bit here, but the secret sauce to what made things so much more doable for me was just growing a truck ton load of things like white potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, onions. I do a lot of dried beans now. Those are things that can be the foundation of your food supply. You can have a whole meal with just a steak and a potato, whereas it wouldn't feel like as much of a meal with a steak and some lettuce or some peas or something. So we like to try to make so that the food that we grow is the majority of what we're eating, and we can spice it up with a few other small things from the grocery store if we have to. We don't honestly very much anymore because I have kids now who can help, and they can snap my green beans and shell peas. Actually, we don't shell peas, but they can do all those little things for me now. But before, I was still growing the bulk of what we were eating, but I wasn't growing everything, if that makes sense. So when I had toddlers running around, I did not grow green beans. There's no comparison in the amount of calories that you can get from a raised bed full of green beans or a raised bed the same size, same amount of work full of sweet potatoes. The calorie difference is vastly different. For the record, like I said, I do grow a ton of other things now, but I didn't used to. I am still incredibly intentional to this day about what crops I plant in my garden. So I think through how long the crop is going to take to harvest, how difficult it is to grow, and then even how long it's going to take me to preserve it. So to this day, I don't grow peas. In fact, we were at someone's house the other evening for lunch, and my 5-year-old looked at me and she's like, "Do I have to eat those little green ball things?" And I was like, oh no, she doesn't even know what peas are, because I don't grow them, because a head of broccoli takes me 2 seconds to harvest for 2 pounds of food in my hand, whereas peas, for 2 pounds of peas in my hand, is going to take substantially longer. And so that's just something for the season I'm in. I'm like, I'm gonna grow the broccoli this time. I don't allow myself to be taken in by flashy veggies in seed catalogs. I stick with tried and true veggies that give great yields. Often the flashy stuff just doesn't yield as much. I have for sure experimented with this stuff, and as boring as it sounds, I always just come running back to my Contender green beans and my California Wonder peppers, and the Baker Creek seed catalog is like sin to me. It's like the ultimate temptation. So beautiful, but I don't grow a lot of the crazy flashy stuff. All of these lessons about efficiency and streamlining came from that season of burnout, and I'm so incredibly grateful for it now, because we're growing more food for our kids than we ever could have if we had just kept right on grinding. Excuse me, I also purged a lot of things that were no longer serving us. So we used to do farmers market, and we had over 100 asparagus plants. We had like 8 rhubarb plants, so many raspberries, and we had livid people on our channel when we tore out a whole bunch of those things. But to us, we were making space for what was serving us in our season, and we can only eat so much rhubarb and asparagus and raspberries. And so it was actually a really great decision for our family.
Come on now. So, the cold room. One of the things that really simplifies preserving for us, so you've got the growing, and then there's the preserving, is having a cold room. And the cold room is a serious game changer because it gives us the option to grow those things that take a lot less work. Without a cold room, yes, you could grow potatoes, you could grow sweet potatoes, you could store them somewhere and they would last for a little while, but they're not gonna last nearly as long. And with the cold room, a lot of the things that we put in there, potatoes, sweet potatoes, we just cure them for a couple weeks out on like in a single layer, and then we put them in bins, and then they go in the cold room, and they last for like 9 months in there. There's no freezing, there's no canning, none of that stuff. And I'm guessing we have stored close to 800 pounds of food in that cold room at one time, but we have not even nearly filled it up. We could probably put 4 times that much in there if we wanted to, and that is a lot of freezer space or canning if we had to do it with that. And I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I'll just go over it real quick again to explain what a cold room is. I'm sure most of you know what a root cellar is. You dig a hole in the ground, put up some walls, pour some concrete, and it's a room in the ground that stays pretty cool year-round, because just a couple feet below the surface, the ground stays about 50 to 55 degrees year-round in our climate. And a cold room, what I did, I didn't have a backhoe or want to dig out a big room with a shovel. So the next best thing is to build a room in a basement. So we have a basement under our house. It's unfinished. There's a concrete floor, but it's unfinished. And so in one corner of it, I built 2 more walls to wall off a corner of it. And I super insulated the walls, super insulated the ceiling, and it's still getting the benefit of that soil temperature from the outside on those 2 walls. So I would say we get about 80 to 90% of the benefit from it that like an actual root cellar would give us. And it's not perfect, the humidity's not perfect, the temperature's not perfect, but it works. We're able to store enough vegetables in there for our family of 6 to eat until next spring when we're harvesting more stuff. The other thing that's cool about a cold room is that it's just down the steps from Michelle when she goes to get her vegetables for her meal prep. With some root cellars, if you were to build them like outside away from the house, tromping through the snow to get your veggies, this is just down in the basement. So I do also talk a lot more about that. We have some videos about it on YouTube, and then the course that we have available, I go into a lot more detail about that as well. And a couple more things that I want to say before we take questions about simplifying and avoiding burnout. And I'll just kind of read these off here real quick. Overwhelm and burnout that parents experience can actually hinder the spread of this lifestyle for the next generation. We want to create a lifestyle that leaves plenty of space for play and adventure and doesn't create bitter kids. I'm sure you've seen the scenario where kids didn't want to take on the family business because for their parents, it completely consumed them, kept them in a constant state of stress, and the kids came to hate it. And we don't want our kids to feel like they have to take on this lifestyle, but we don't want that to be the reason that they don't. And let's also be honest here, extremism and being too radical just doesn't look very attractive. Our passion is to show people that this lifestyle is attainable. It's not just for wildly determined or special people. Anyone can make better choices and live closer to the land. And also, please don't be ashamed or embarrassed if you're not growing everything yourself. Like I said, we're getting milk from somebody in the community. And did you catch that word there? The word community. Self-sustainability is a myth. And I don't think we can or should use that phrase as a cop-out to just not do hard work. But it is true that we really do need each other. Our homesteading mantra is the spirit of homesteading is doing what you can with what you have. And that goes for money, land, time, and brain space.
We try to live out our homesteading lifestyle in a way that keeps us coming back for more. We try to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success and not taking on more than we can handle so that we can feel accomplished at the end of the year and not like a failure. When we come to the end of the growing season, there's times where we'll look at each other and we'll be like, that was too easy, what did we miss? And that is when we know that we can add on something else from our homesteading bucket list and take it on without going crazy. So don't be ashamed or afraid to step back and reevaluate and even cut some things out, because that might just be what it takes to reignite that passion in you for living closely to the land. Do it for the next generation. I believe that the spread of the homestead movement depends on us stewarding it well.
All right, so just a couple things real quick before we take some questions. I'm not sure if that QR code is going to work because the text is like over it. But we have a course available that we came out with that so what we talked about just now is like a very condensed version of what that course is. The course is about strategies to build a homestead that will actually work for you, kind of help you figure out what you should be growing, how you should be growing it, things like that. It's not step-by-step how-tos.
It's not like how to grow a potato. It's the strategy behind coming to the end of the year with a ton of food for your family.
Yeah. So if you could have scanned that QR code, it is morethanfarmers.teachable.com. But I have another paper at our booth, which is at the end of tent C, where her brother is with his coffee cart. And I've got a little paper there. So there's 2 different discount codes you can use that are exclusive for you here at this event if you want it. The one is Seed to Spoon. If you use that discount or that code at checkout, you'll get 25% off. And if you come to the booth and you scan the QR code there, I can give you another code, or there's a code on that paper that'll give you 30% off. The first one that I mentioned is good for a week. That extra discount that's at our booth is only good for the 2 days of this summit here. So that is going to be done tonight. And if you want to find us anywhere, we are at More Than Farmers on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So it should be pretty simple. But we've got actually quite a bit of time here, and we would just love to chat and hang out with you guys and take any questions if you've got any.
Yes.
So,
Was in another session about canning. And so she said one year she might put up enough green beans to last like 3 years.
Yes.
Growing. So do you use that method?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
repeat that question.
So the question was, do I can enough some years so that I don't have to grow the same thing the next year and I can just, am I asking that? Yeah. I do that with specialty items like certain condiments like zucchini relish and ketchup and even barbecue sauce and things that we don't eat a ton of, apple butter. I'll just make a whole bunch one season and then I can just skip the next season. I also do that for things like dent corn, and popcorn. We'll grow a whole bunch one year and then those things store forever. They're beautiful self-sufficiency foods because they can just store shelf-stable, no canning or preserving needed, and they'll last forever. And so I'll just grow a whole bunch, and then like this year, I'm not growing any corn, and so I'm growing I'm not growing dent corn or popcorn. And so I can focus on growing tons of dried beans, and then possibly I won't have to grow dried beans next year.
We have a question here.
Oh,
What is our kids' favorite part and least favorite part of our homestead? I think our kids probably don't realize what their favorite part is because they don't know what the alternative is. But I do know that they love the freedom we have, especially with doing our YouTube channel. Like Michelle said, we work more hours on that than I would have at my full-time job, but we are more flexible and we can spend time with our kids and stuff, and so we have a lot of freedom there. I know they love that.
we'll go backpacking like in the middle of the week, and especially during, like when school is in season, we've got free reign of all the parks and anything like that, so they really like that.
But homesteading-wise, a couple of them like the animals and a couple of them like the gardens, so it's actually very different for some of them. Our one son is terrified of the cows because he got scared by one when he was really little, and then the other one will just kind of like walk out there and I'm like, dude, you got to be careful, that thing is going to kick you across the field.
One of our kids loves the animals. He does really well with the animals. Our daughter loves the gardening. She doesn't really like helping me garden, but she likes doing her own garden. So,
What would be their least favorite?
least favorite? I mean, all the dishes, honestly. I mean, that literally is part of homesteading, is just dishes all day long.
Yeah.
So that's probably their least favorite.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Yes.
Tips on storing your carrots, because I see your carrot harvest, and I've kind of given up on storing them.
Uh-huh.
So I'd love to know what you do.
So sorry, bug
So
in
the
my eye.
question was, tips on storing carrots. We grow a ton of carrots. If you've seen some of our videos, like literally a giant mound of carrots that we grow. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. It flew into my eye. So what I do, and this is not something someone told me, this is just something I kind of figured out when I had so many carrots and didn't know what to do with them. I figured out that if you have them in a bag that has air gaps, they get kind of rubbery, they dehydrate a little bit. And so what I do is I put them into plastic grocery bags and then I tape the bags shut and I store them in stacks in a refrigerator, and they store for quite a while. We were still eating carrots in it was around May that they started going bad. So like all winter long, they will start sprouting, and you don't want to eat them if they're moldy, obviously. But they still are crunchy and sweet, and as long as they taste amazing, you can still eat them.
They do get a little like slimy, and if you look it up online, it'll say not to eat those. We scrub them off and we eat them.
We scrub them off, and if there's not mold, we eat them. So, I mean, use your common sense. I feel like I can say that to this group. Another thing that I am wanting to try this year is somebody told me From Scratch Farmstead, I think is what they're called. And I messaged her about carrots because they did an experiment with sand last year. And she said in a basement, like not even a cold room, it was around 65 degrees, they laid out their carrots one by one and covered them with sand. And she said they lasted all winter long that way. So I feel like, I was like, how would you ever move a box with like 300 pounds of carrots that I grow? I don't know how efficient it is, but supposedly that works as well. It didn't? Okay, well then I won't try it.
Well,
I don't want to
also,
waste
like,
anything.
Part of the reason we've never done it is because it just looks like a lot of extra like work and mess and stuff. Some
Yeah.
people will actually leave their carrots out in the garden and then dig them up as they need them. But I mean, here in Ohio, when it's snowy in the winter, I don't want to go out there and dig carrots. Somebody had their hand up over here. Yeah. Okay, so question, in a lot of our videos, we're showing how we use leaf mulch to mulch a lot of the areas in our garden, which does work very well, in fact. And how do we keep those leaves, because you said yours were like getting kind of slimy or whatever over the winter? Because often the easiest and best way to get them is if you have a lawn service that needs to get rid of their leaves that you can get in touch with and have them just like dump them at your place on a pile. And honestly, that's just what we do. They're just on a pile. And like they're a little bit slimy or whatever.
Slimy
but
is good, honestly.
yeah,
It is,
they're
truly.
they're starting to break down. And like when we were putting leaves on our garden this spring, there were so many earthworms in there. I was like, this is so cool. We're like, not only are we mulching our garden, but we're adding something very beneficial to it. We used to mulch with paper. I would get rolls of paper from Home Depot, painter's paper, and use a chop saw or skill saw before I unrolled it and cut it into however wide I wanted it, and roll it down the path and put straw on top of it. But straw is going to sit on top of each other like this. It's like sticks with a lot of little air gaps.
Lots of
and stuff.
airflow.
And so weeds came up through that pretty fast, but the leaves mat together on top of each other and create a much better barrier. And then by the time you get into fall or the next spring or whatever, you're easily able to till those in, and you're adding actually something really good and alive to your soil.
I used to get really grossed out by the slime, but now I love it because if you put that really thickly up against your soil, you will be blown away with the root crops that you can grow. Your soil, it's like magic. It's magical.
One thing you should mention probably is about like peppers and stuff with mulching around them right away.
Oh, I will say, so if you live in a place, especially with like a shorter growing season or a place with really cool springs, you want to wait to mulch your plants, at least in my experience. You want to wait to mulch until the soil is for sure the right temperature, because your warm weather crops will just sit there because the mulch is keeping
keeps
them
it cooler.
cool.
Yeah.
And so you want to, if you mulch, you want to leave a nice space around your warm, loving crops so that they will actually get the warmth and the heat that they need to grow and thrive. Yeah.
Still got a little bit of time.
Yes.
Describe your next homestead, what you would like to have. Lay it out.
Okay, so he says, describe your next homestead, exactly what you would want, and just like lay it out. I mean, the first thing is I don't want cornfields around. So I would like to have a nice, large buffer from cornfields, because where we are now, I can smell the waves of glyphosate just like wafting over our property. So that's our number one.
Yeah, honestly, part of it's going to depend on where we actually end up moving to. We had been looking just like right where we were, and I don't know for sure if that's, or right where we are now. I don't know for sure if that's going to happen. If it happens like that, I mean, you cannot get very far away from fields where we are, and so it is just going to be like maybe some woods as a buffer or something from a field. If we would end up going somewhere else, you know, I would love to live. I grew up in North Carolina, and I miss the hills and the trees and, you know, the mountains and everything. I would love to live in the woods, but, you know, if you live in the woods, you need some sunshine. So our ideal piece of property would be a house tucked up into the woods a little bit, but then open space for a garden and then pastures. Right now we have, I think it's around 3 acres of pasture. And I actually ran out of grass this year. I was super frustrated. We got a few, so I've got 2 mini Hereford cows and then a mini Hereford steer and a Dexter cross steer. And that was more animals than I've ever had before, and they just ate up. I put them on the grass too soon this spring and ended up running out of grass. I had to get some hay, and actually 2 of the steers are at her dad's place. He wanted cows there anyways, so I want even more cows than that, and for that to happen, I'm gonna have to have more pasture. So ideally, I would love to have about 10 acres of pasture and space for a garden, and then like 20 acres of woods or something.
Cody says he can't think of anything that 200 acres couldn't cure.
Right.
So,
I don't know if some of you caught in a couple of our recent videos, we went cruising through on our mountain bikes in the background and did a little jump or whatever. And so my kids love mountain biking and stuff. We'd love to have a place where we can put in some trails and stuff like that. This is side note, but I'll go on anyways. I was riding my bike around our community, taking a bike ride, and I went past this house that was a very nice, big house. They had just built a very nice, big, like, shop garage thing, big enough to park their RV in. I couldn't see inside, but I'm assuming there's, like, UTVs and boats and whatever in there. But that's all the property was. It was on the corner. There was the road and this corner patch where it was just this really nice house, really nice shop. And the idea I got in my head was like, this is their home base. This is their home, but then everything fun that they want to do, they have to go somewhere else. They're going somewhere else to do what they want to do. What I would love to do with our homestead is to create a place that our kids love to be at and want to bring their friends to. Like, hey, come to our house and we can go ride bikes on our trails. Come to our house and we can go play in the creek. Come to our house and, you know, we can do this. I want to create a space that my children can feel free and alive, and that's where they want to be. And obviously, I mean, we love backpacking and going on adventures and stuff like that, and we still want to do that. But I want to create a space that our kids will really love to spend a lot of time. So the ideal homestead for me is a place where our family can feel like we can just be ourselves. Yeah. Back there.
What does homeschooling look like for you guys? Like, you don't mind curriculum, schedules, you're gonna be new homeschoolers,
So the question was, what does homeschooling look like for us? So I homeschool a little bit differently than some people because if I have too many things going on in my brain at the same time, I just don't function very well. And so what I do is I only homeschool from October through May, as in homeschool with books. So from October through May, I will double up and do whatever I have to get all the bookwork done. And then at the crack of May, we stop because that is when the garden starts, things start picking up outside. I can't concentrate in the house if it's beautiful outside. And so I just pack things in there. And for the record, I do get my kids tested by a licensed teacher. They are up to date. I'm not one of those that, you know, and no shame if you don't have your kids perfectly up to snuff. All that I'm saying is, like, I'm not looking lightly at homeschooling. I do definitely care about education. But for me, like, teaching my children to learn traditional skills, know where their food comes from, become responsible consumers, that is part of school, in my opinion. And so from October through May is what I do. We have been, up to this point, using Masterbooks curriculum, which is a very much, I really do love it. I feel like if you haven't had like a really great education, you might struggle a bit teaching it to your kids because it leaves a lot of room for the teacher to add things and stuff. So this year I am switching to something that my older ones can do a bit more on their own. It's called My Academy, but this is not like, I'm not giving a review of it because I've never tried it. I've just had friends who said it's really great. So for my older kids, I'm switching them to that because it's a bit more self-led. And then my younger ones, I will probably stick with the Masterbooks.
I think what you also started to say is October through May, you're doing bookwork. Then the rest of the year, they have a daily reading time and like going over their flashcards and stuff like that. So like they're kind of getting some of that year
Every
round.
single afternoon for an hour, they have to read. And so that is what keeps their brains turning. And I feel like it just makes so that everything sticks so that when they start up again the next October, they haven't lost everything. I also have them do 5 minutes of flashcards like multiplication, division. I just have them flashcards by each of their beds, and they know that they have to do that for 5 minutes, and then they do their hour of reading, and that's what keeps them going over the time where we are gardening and stuff. Yes, yes. I'm a quiet time person. I like my personal space. And so from 1:30 to 3 is when they have their quiet time, and they know that you can only bother mom if you're bleeding.
And even then, it better be a lot of blood.
Even then, there better be a lot.
Back there. Can you put too many leaves on your garden? So far, we
Honestly,
haven't yet.
So I was scared of it before I started, because I was like, ooh, is that gonna like change the pH? I mean, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I didn't know. And the person who told me was somebody who had been in lawn care since, like, it was like a generational, it was in the family. And she said that her mom put leaves on the garden like nice and thick for years and years and years. And she said their soil was absolutely beautiful. And I have been doing it now for what? Would you say 5, 6 years? And my soil is insane. Like, I have had fewer bugs. Like, I still have pests, don't get me wrong. But I have fewer bugs, fewer disease, and I get soil tests done every single year.
Yeah, so
So-
we've gotten soil tests through Redmond and through Berlin Seeds, and Brenton is running around here somewhere. He is a powerhouse of knowledge when it comes to
Yes.
this stuff, and I talked to him about our last soil test, and there's a couple things that we do need to work on, but it had nothing to do with like there being too many leaves.
had to
Actually,
do with
the
too much.
biggest thing was we use compost in our garden, and it's animal manure-based compost,
Mm-hmm.
and we've probably actually been overdoing that a little bit, because animal manure, I believe it's high in
Phosphorus.
and it's a little bit high in that, so we need to balance some of that stuff out. Well, he suggested keep on composting, but start a separate pile of vegetable or like plant-based compost, and switch that up sometimes rather than just all animal-based.
But the
stuff,
leaves have never done anything but good, so,
at least so far.
yes.
How do you guys handle eating clean away from home? I know you have health issues to deal with. We see a huge behavior impact when you're away from home. What do you do with that?
How do we handle eating clean when we're away from home?
I for sure follow the whole 80-20 thing. Basically, for us, when we're at home, we eat what we grow. So meals look like a protein that was grown on our land, and potatoes that were grown on our land, salads, asparagus. Right now, things are looking a little bit different because there's this awkward span of time between when our cold room is no longer cool enough to keep our root crops good, and then my potatoes still aren't quite ready to harvest. So we have that little gap in there. So right now, our carbs are coming from like some rice and noodles that we keep in food grade buckets in our basement, but then we also have lots of like taco salads and asparagus. Our kids are starting to cry at the sight of asparagus now, so I know it's time to stop. But when we're away from home, I'm not gonna lie, like we basically take a very broad, like, okay, that looks like it has boatloads of food coloring in it, so don't choose that. Like, we'll go to Johnson's Ice Cream if there's not a great ice cream shop around, and we'll just tell the kids it's either vanilla or chocolate. Don't get the green stuff. But we love places like Jenny's Ice Cream where they have grass-grazed milk, and we are willing to pay a little bit more and then just not eat out as often. But we also are not purists at all. And I will also be the first one to say, I'll bust out some grass-fed hot dogs from Kroger during canning season, because I know that in order for me to have the time for us to eat really, really well all winter long, I might need to cheat a couple times in the summertime when I'm canning. And so I'll pull out an organic freezer pizza. We still try to source the better ingredients, but we know that an organic freezer pizza is far from nutritious, you know? But we do the best we can, and then we just let it go. As far as like some of the intolerances, I only have one child that has that, and she, like yesterday, she went through the line by herself, and she just got a hamburger with lettuce and tomatoes. Like, she knows what she can have and can't have, and she regulates it herself. And there's a couple of our kids that make great choices, and then there's a couple of the others that don't, and it's just, you roll with it. Yeah.
Here.
What's the best way to grow what? Sweet potatoes? My personal favorite way is growing them in raised beds. I had a lot of issues with fungus on my sweet potatoes when I did it in ground, and when I put them into raised beds, it made the world of a difference.
Raised beds drain a lot faster
Yes.
than in
And
the
sweet
ground.
potatoes are just sensitive to that. They like to be warm and more on the dry side than on the wet side. So raised beds have worked amazing. My favorite, I don't know if you live in Ohio, but for our zone, Covington are chef's kiss.
So the Covington variety is a bush variety, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's called. The sweet potatoes grow at the base of the plant, like only there, instead of a lot of varieties of potatoes, when they send out their big long vines, those will root and grow more potatoes. And it used to be when I'd go to dig sweet potatoes, I felt like I was literally digging up the entire garden to find all the sweet potatoes. But now it's like I stick my pitchfork in one spot, pry it up, and there's the bunch of sweet
All of
potatoes.
them
and
right
that's it.
there.
So Vardaman and Covington are the two varieties that we grow, and we grow them in our raised beds.
Yes. I grow 40 slips for our family of 6, and that is like perfect. It takes me right to the window, like right within the window that we need them.
Right back there. How many years until we fell into a good routine?
Oh.
Have we? It looks like it in our videos.
I mean,
So like, I think when I was going over our story, kind of that time when we started weeding out the things that were just really sucking us dry and started really focusing on what we felt was really important for our family, that's when it all, I think, started making more sense for us and feeling right. And it's like Michelle said, and just, I would say in the last like 3 or 4 years, we'll look at each other and be like, what are we missing? Like, this was too
this
easy.
was too easy. What are we missing?
So I would say it's only been a few years that it's actually felt like, I mean, we still have like our ups and downs, like crazy roller coaster sometimes, but I say it's just in the last few years. And we bought our property, started building our house in 2014, so it's been 12 years altogether. So, you know, it's been a while. Takes a while. But it gets better as we focus on what is really important and what makes the biggest difference for us. It definitely gets better every year. So it wasn't like it was all crazy and all of a sudden it gets better. It gets better every year as long as you keep your focus and your priorities as right as possible.
Well, and I think too, a huge thing that made the difference for us is all of a sudden our children are older and are helping so much. Like, I'll see the asparagus patch needs to be weeded, and in my head I'm like, okay, I'm going to be out there for 3 hours, but I'll give each of my kids a row and we'll literally be done in half an hour. And like, toddlers are a wild card. You just never know what they're going to do. And so when your kids are older and can help you, everything's just so much easier.
Yeah. Let's take one more question real quick. Here.
The sweet potatoes?
How do we store sweet potatoes? Those go in our cold room, and we'll harvest them. We used to wait until they got killed by frost. We don't wait
But we
that
don't do
long
that anymore, no.
But once we can tell that they're ready, we'll harvest those, and then they get laid out on shelves in the basement, in the warmer part of the basement. So, caveat here, or disclaimer here, we don't do everything perfectly to the book when it comes to curing or storing, but we do it well enough that it works.
Yeah.
So I think to cure sweet potatoes, isn't it even
Hot and humid.
like hot or like really warm, but we don't have it that warm in our basement. But the warmer side of our basement, they go on like wire shelving. So instead of like a solid shelf where there's not as good airflow, it goes on wire shelving so that there's airflow all around them in a single layer.
2
Just
weeks.
layer them out, and then they stay there for 2 weeks. And then once they're done curing, we can put them in crates. We got a bunch of milk crates. There was like a food pantry that were given a bunch of crates, and they had way too many. So they gave them to us. So it's just those plastic milk crates that have holes, you know, all around. They go in those crates, and then they go on other wire shelves in our cold room. And so they have good ventilation around them. And that cold room, during the winter, the cold part of the winter, it's usually about 45 to 50 degrees. In like the fall and spring, it's probably closer to 55 degrees. But they will store in there really well for like 9 months.
So sweet potatoes actually like it to be a little bit warmer, but because our cold room is normally like 45 to 50 degrees, on really cold winters when it's 45 degrees, the sweet potatoes don't like it quite as much, and they'll start just developing a bit of an off taste by spring. But if it's a little bit, I think, I would have to check this, but I think sweet potatoes like 65. They will store until spring, and you can pick them up and never know that you did not just dig that sweet potato. They store even better than white potatoes.
Yeah, and I will mention there's a book that it's like our root cellaring Bible. It's called Root Cellaring, and it's by Mike and Nancy Buble. You can find it on Amazon or anything. But they go into detail on like all the different temperatures and humidity and everything. That book has been amazing in helping us. And it'll give you also really good alternatives if you can't put in a cold room or a root cellar. Give you some good alternatives for that.
Yes.
So we're gonna be done. We're gonna be at that booth at the end of tent C, and I'm gonna tell you that Michelle's strawberry matcha, if you wanted to try that at all, Conrad is on track to run out of that before the
He's
end of the day.
almost out, so run.
You better
Run.
go get your strawberry matcha. And if we happen to run out, I came up with my own special coffee drink that I will serve you if you want a coffee instead. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. So we got two more speakers. We have Justin Rhodes, and then Ruth Ann Zimmerman will be back at the 4 o'clock hour. And while they are miking him up, does anybody have any questions, fears or worries, criticisms? Yes, ma'am. A recycle container. Good idea. Yes, sir. All of them are recorded. His question was, are any of these presentations recorded? The answer is all of them. And we're going to make them available on the website. I think we'll probably do it for free. I'd like to share them. So the best thing that obviously, putting on an event like this is extraordinarily expensive. I'll just be candid. I mean, the speakers we brought in this year cost over $100,000. And so you have to fund that. But the way you could help more than anything else is to become an ambassador for next year. And what we do is if we can get the website to work, you sign up as an ambassador, and then you invite up to 10 friends, and we give you discounts and stuff. And that would, if you think about if half the people that came here would recruit 10 others, which is not that hard, the biggest spend that we do and the hardest thing has been to spread the word in social media. So now that we've got a baseline of people, if you can do that, that would be very much appreciated. Anybody else? There you are.
Is there any way to be able to do chicken scrap buckets? It seems so much food being wasted. There's probably plenty of chickens around here that could eat it.
Go up to this tent and talk to Mr. Byler and make that suggestion, because I don't know why we couldn't do that.
And then another suggestion, like maybe small clips of some of the speakers to be able to circulate on social media, just to grab attention of like the topics. I didn't know if that's something that would draw more people in.
So like 15 or 30-second reels?
Yeah, like I have a Facebook farm page, and I know like after I left last year, a lot of people were intrigued. So maybe
Yeah.
when I switched to the ambassador program, I could share clips of like small tidbits of the speakers, just to grab.
Yeah, I mean, what you really want is a 15-second snapshot that then links to reel. So I'll toss this one back out, as we have so many volunteers. I'll digress here for a moment. The musicians that were here, weren't they great? that just came together like 2 days before the summit. And the fiddler, the kid, he showed up here the day before and asked if he could play. So this was completely unrehearsed. So is there anybody in the audience that is a producer that would be willing to cut up the social media clips and the reels? Make the 10-second ones. It's not that hard to do, it just takes a little bit of time. Okay, I think Justin Rhodes is all mic'd up. Please welcome Mr. Justin Rhodes.
Okay, here we go. All right, happy day. One of the most popular questions that I get is, how do I get my spouse on board? And then I tell them, well, there's ways, and most of the time it's women, okay? And let women, do any have that same question? Well, this is what you do. You get motivated to live a healthier life. See, I got dragged into this. Oh, thank you.
This was somewhere
Oh.
front here. I'm sure somebody is.
Oh, okay.
Can you announce that?
Yeah, we've got a missing phone. A couple is, oh, you guys know them, but they're not here anymore.
Do you know who it was?
I don't, but he had something on his shirt that said, "Go away, trip."
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll keep, I'm going to take it down to information, and they'll probably show up.
So ladies, this is how you get your husband on board. You get motivated to live a healthier life. You get so into it, you decide you're going to start a community garden, a CSA garden, where you are going to build a garden, provide food for your family, sell to the community, and do you guys understand what a CSA is? You go ahead and sell the shares, and then you plant the garden and grow the shares, and then provide. And so you do that, and you assure your husband he doesn't have to do anything. This is your project. But then you get into it and you say, well, could you call a few people? And so the husband picks up the phone, he calls everybody in there that he might think be interested, and he sells a dozen shares on our first year, but she's going to take care of everything else. That's no big deal. And then ladies, this is how you do it. You go and get pregnant. And then you get sick. Now I know it takes two. He's involved, but and then you get sick, and and the husband has called all his friends, and he's taken money, and now he has to deliver on that. So that's our opt-in story. Now, since then, I've come to become a believer myself, and now she and I are in a journey together. But today we're going to go over opting out to opt in. And we're going to hopefully conclude and go away from, because a lot of us are running from something, and we're leaving something. But I've learned we've got to be going towards something else for it to last. So one of the very first examples is when Rebecca first discovered that conventional milk, the milk that we were drinking, was not that great. It had hormones in it. We now know it's GMO. It was all these things. And she became concerned, and so we switched from conventional milk to organic milk. And then before you know it, I had to write down all the paths we've taken since then, because it's been a wild ride. We went from conventional milk to organic milk, to raw milk, buying raw milk, to having our own family cow, to rotationally grazing our cow, moving them every day, to then getting, that wasn't good enough, so then we had to get what you call the A2A2 genetics, so that the milk is easier to digest. Anybody familiar with this path? Okay, we've got one or two in the audience. To not using dewormers, to not using vaccines, to then mineralizing them. We give our cows 16 different minerals, and then can we keep going? Yeah, we can keep going. I read a book recently, proofing it before it goes to print. She talked about McBride. What's her first name? Natasha McBride from the GAPS diet. She's writing a homestead book, and she talks about talking to your animals and plants. I tell Rebecca, you talk to the plants, I'll talk to the animals. We're good. Talk to them. And her point was, when you're talking to something, you're thinking about it. You're giving it your full attention. And when you talk to it positively, it's a positive energy. And then, when you go to harvest or eat or consume that milk's happy milk. It's something you loved as it was growing and making its way towards your plate. And is there more? Well, right now that we've gotten talking to our animals down, we're looking into making sure, and that's part of mineralizing the cows, so that we mineralize our soils. Because we came from soil, we could be no better than the soil from which our food comes. But notice in there, one thing that's gotten us through that is we didn't just quit conventional milk, we opted into organic. Our identity, and see the difference? Our identity wasn't, oh, we don't drink conventional milk. Our identity was, we're organic milk drinkers. And then it became, we're raw milk drinkers. Anybody see those t-shirts walking around with just raw milk on top? Or make raw milk cool again? You have to go from something to something. A lot of times we have a good example. In 2020, a lot of people were getting into homesteading from fear. It was food security issues. For the first time in our vernacular, food shortages. We said food shortages. We said social distances. We said supply chain issues. Those are words and phrases I had never heard my whole life. And so it's understandable that you run to homesteading out of fear. But what happens when you do something from fear, you're going on adrenaline. Imagine a sprint. Imagine running from a wolf or something. Eventually, you're going to collapse. And that's what we have now. We have what I call COVID gardens. These gardens that have been abandoned since. Because we've gone back to normal. And we're going on and we're getting to that 6-7 year mark, which is a burnout year. That happens it can happen in marriage, it can happen in farming or gardening or whatever. There's something special or challenging that happens around the 7th year mark. So you got to be going towards something. So don't be afraid to, if you came from food security and you're feeling burnout, to dig in and discover a deeper why. If you are at a homesteading event on a Thursday afternoon, you might be a crazy homesteader, as Joel Salatin calls them, lunatic farmers. Well, you might be a lunatic homesteader if you're at a homesteading event on Thursday afternoon when the rest of the world is out working or shopping or doing whatever they're doing. So you've questioned something, haven't you? And it may not have been your food source like Rebecca and I, and we were questioning things even before that. We were questioning the traditional school. Maybe we should homeschool our kids. And maybe that's why we were so open to embracing homesteading. And even once I got into homesteading and started studying it and getting into it and getting excited about it, I'm finding Elliot Coleman, a gardener. I'm finding Joel Salatin, the animal farmer. And then I'm finding permaculture. And then I'm getting these permaculture boards. If you don't know permaculture, it's a design science. It teaches you how to farm with nature rather than against it. So we're just going down this rabbit trail. And don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid to continue to question things, to diverge from the norm, to opt out of things, and try things. And you might try it small, depending on how crazy it is, and it may not be for you. That was family cloth for us. Anybody in here crazy enough to ever try family cloth? That's opting out of toilet paper. And using cloth instead and washing it. That lasted about one round, didn't it? I don't ever think it ever made it to the wash. We probably just threw it in the trash. Said, okay, we'll stick with toilet paper. That wasn't in the notes. Sorry, Beck. We didn't talk about that last night. That did not get approved last night. Hopefully I'm not in trouble. So it's hard to talk about opting out without talking about opting in, but also opting out is a form of abstinence, isn't it? And why abstain? I've got 3 reasons for those of you taking notes. The first one might be that it was our first call as men and women to love God, wasn't it? We were given all this wonderful stuff, and there was even something wonderful over here, but we were forbidden to take it. So it was a time that we could express our love for the Creator by whether we did this or not. And then the abstinence call continued in the law, didn't it? And it was a way of expressing our love. You show your love for me by doing as I command. And then the law was put on our hearts. And now we know if we'll be quiet what is good and bad, don't we? And whether we listen or not, it's up to us. So when we do that, I feel like we find our purpose and meaning, even if it's hard. And it's okay that it's hard. If you don't get anything out of the talk, know that we're not made to be comfortable, are we? And oftentimes when we're uncomfortable, if it's for the right thing, not being an idiot, that's when we find real joy and fulfillment. It may not be happiness, but it might be joy and real fulfillment. So if that's the first thing, maybe it's our original calling. The second would be you end up opting out of something and opting into something else because of a precipice. Who in here has gone through a health precipice? That's a time where everything is going well until it isn't. And for me, that was my issues with Lyme. Everything was going well, working really hard, young man, kids, and then suddenly muscle pain. Just a little bit, but enough to debilitate me a little bit. And then it expands and goes on. If you don't, it's sad that it takes that oftentimes, that we have to have this big catastrophic event. But hopefully some of you are here who haven't experienced that, and we can stop before we get to that precipice. But oftentimes that's what gives us the opting out story. There's a pain point. And it's okay to listen to that pain, right? A pain is our friend. So pain can take us into a different direction. We have it for a reason. Our body perceives it so it can change our direction. So we get this pain. It's not a bad thing. Embrace the pain and say, what do you want? What do you want from me? Don't ignore it. Go with it. And number 3, there's oftentimes a better good. So maybe you don't have to go over a precipice. And maybe you're doing good, and that's okay. But maybe there's a better good out there. So maybe it's okay to just keep getting it from the store, keep getting from your homestead, from your Amish neighbors. But maybe just maybe, you ought to opt into homesteading because it's something you can do together as a family. It's something that when you live a life of abundance and you're growing your own food and you're preserving it and you're in this flow, when you live a life, I'll say this, when you live a life of abundance, you live a life of preparedness naturally. When Hurricane Helene, did anybody hear of the big hurricane that hit North Carolina, a year and a half ago now? We lost power without notice for 15 days. And for those of us who are dependent on the power, that's a big deal. But for Rebecca and I, we had fortunately just got our generator going the 3 days before it happened. And roads are shut down, all these things. But the cows didn't watch the news or scroll the Instagram. No, their internet's always out. And so they didn't care. They just kept eating grass and making milk. We had milk ever flowing. We had eggs always going. And we were fortunate enough to have a big bag of Redmond salt. So we were good for a really long time. But that didn't happen because we heard about the hurricane coming and we ran out to the store. We did some of that, maybe get some fuel or whatnot. But that happened because we became prepared 2-3 years ago when we got the family cow. And then grew her up and then had her calf and then we're milking it. So live a life of abundance lends itself to a life of preparedness. And if nothing bad ever happens, who cares? It's a wonderful life. So that would be the third reason, the better good. Now there are 3 kinds of abstinences. And there's the bad that you don't desire. Perhaps that's probably smoking. Many of you probably shouldn't smoke, don't ever want to smoke. Big deal. What do you want, a medal? You know? But there's also bad something not to do or to take off our to-do list. Rebecca and I are real bad about doing so much and then something happens, like a son dislocates his hip, and all of a sudden we're at all these doctor's appointments and we have this whole other part-time job and we didn't cut anything out. Somebody mentioned earlier that you can get into homesteading, but you didn't cut anything out from your normal life. And then you're all stressed out, and I'll tell people, and I'll tell myself, don't blame the homestead for the stress that is your other life. So you got to cut back on the ball games. You got to cut back on the staying up late. You got to cut back on all the events. You got to cut back on something. Something's got to give if you're coming into this life. There's a time, perhaps, to abstain from food. You need that to live. But maybe there's a time. Maybe we're eating not only too much, but too often. And maybe there's a time to not eat. And some healthy, miraculous things happen when you don't eat. You get into a fat-burning stage early on. You get into what they call ketosis, and you're very sharp and mentally. And then if you go far enough, you start regenerating cells. All these miraculous things happen from just doing nothing, in this case, not eating. How about a daily rest? After we eat, Rebecca and I go on a walk. It helps with digestion. No kids allowed. This is our time. This is our daily rest. We take the Sabbath. We call it a 0 day. We got to get the chores done, but then we do nothing. And we haven't really had kind of like our ideal Sabbath in a while, in maybe 4 or 5 weeks. And we're feeling it. And we cannot wait till this Saturday. We're going to have a good one this Saturday, right? Okay. And us, we're 47, right? So we can do a day event and we can do a night event, but we can in no circumstance do both of those in one day. And maybe that's what's, we might have to, we're talking about going to a graduation party or something. These aren't these big unrestful things, but to us, it's not just vegging out, reading a book or watching watching some series on Netflix or something. I'm going to go through this and then leave some time for questions. What are some things to opt out of that we might not be thinking about? Okay, we've talked a lot about toxic, I don't need to beat that into the ground, toxic foods, but have we talked about toxic friends or family? This might be things to opt out of, especially when you first get on this journey and you're almost a closet homesteader. And you have to be careful because who you tell about it, because they're going to make you feel like you're crazy. How about opting out of stress? Social media, okay. Social media can be a blessing and it can be a curse. And it can be and maybe it's, for you, maybe it's a blessing. For us, it certainly has been. It's how we've earned our our living, and it's wonderful. But it can also be a curse, and there may be a time, just like food, you need to opt out of it. And I know people that have opted out of it completely. They got flip phones. They're getting left behind. And I was telling you earlier in our homestead talk, we fear being left behind as homesteaders or taking the day of rest. That's okay. What's wrong with being left behind? Question that. What about chemicals? Has anybody been talking about the toxic chemicals? Cleaning chemicals, these kinds of things, scented sheets, Tide, laundry detergent, these kinds of things. And you can dare to ask yourself and do this because you've opted out of food. Now we're okay with questioning some other things. And maybe we don't go through with it, maybe we do, but it's good to question, isn't it? At some point in your faith journey, you grew up a certain way in your faith. And at some point, I mean, the Amish are really good at doing this. They have, what is that year called? You have to decide, are you going to join the church that you grew up in? And so you explore other things, and then you decide if you're going to do it or not. Well, it's the same way with this. With how you've grown up eating, how you've grown up doing community, how you've grown up cleaning, how you've grown up dressing. Question everything. What about complaining? And these are like the socially acceptable sins. Or not doing right by the body, the temple. Complaining. What about criticism? Are these things we ought to opt out of? And now I ask you, and I think through it on the stage, how about anxiety? We can almost say, I'm a chronic worrier, and it's okay. Nobody looks at you weird, you know? It's not, because it's a socially acceptable sin. But what? Gossip. Good one. I didn't have that one written down. And feel free to shout out. We're an intimate group. This is a workshop. I don't have all the answers. Thank you. Gossip. I wonder, I struggle with anxiety to the point that my stomach hurts. And it's miserable, and I feel this cloud. And I'm working on that. And I don't know if I have the answer. And it's hard to say, I've got to opt out of that and then just have the discipline. And I'm telling you, we've got to opt out of something. We've got to opt into something. What is my opt-in if I'm going to stop anxiety? Oftentimes we want to change our actions without changing our lifestyle. So what is the lifestyle change that I need that will make me become less worrisome? Meditating in Scripture, she says. Good. Anybody else? Anybody got an answer for me? Prayer? Daily devotion. This is good. You know what I was going to maybe say? That maybe I feel like I'm hearing is prayer. I have a friend that he is writing a book called The 60-Second Sabbath. And the way it goes, at certain times during the day or when you think of it and you're stressed, he doesn't put his hand over her heart, but I've been practicing putting my hand over her heart. And he just takes deep breaths. So there's benefit to that deep breathing alone. But then with those deep breaths, yes?
We learned yesterday when you take that deep breath,
Yeah?
it stretches your vagus nerve and it calms you down.
Wow. The deep breath stretches the vagus nerve and calms you down. Yeah. And he'll, as he takes in a breath, good morning, Lord. I love you, Lord. These. Okay, and he's got 7 of those things. Help me, guide me, forgive me. I forget all of them. What? Fill me. Thank you. That is one. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Guide me. So it's interesting. It's interesting that you guys say this because I would say I've been in I call it a Christian coma. So I've been quiet for 10 years and then lots of questions. And then as I come out of this, I'm rediscovering prayer. And so could it be that I give up anxiety for prayer? So I become a prayer instead of somebody who's chronically worried. And in the prayer, could it be that the old praying me, way back, talked too much? Used God as a genie in the bottle. Oh God, give me this. Oh, I wish for this. Please make this happen. That then I become a listener. And so it's kind of neat that I feel like I'm hearing. You don't hear things like that, do you? That I'm thinking that, and then you guys mention that. So thank you. We'll see where that goes. So yeah, I just did that exercise live and in front of you. So hopefully when you have something that you feel like you can opt out of, you can think, well, what do I opt into? And you think, right? That's how you're going to perhaps hear from the Creator, is that you're going to hear it in your head, your true self coming out. We are in His image, so we are going to get the deepest desires of our hearts. But we have to listen and to ourselves to understand what that is. And then you talk with friends, and perhaps you get a confirmation about that. That's good. Anybody else? Before I go on? I put down here moderation, because I think Rebecca had it on her heart. Somebody needed to hear this, because we hear this saying, everything in moderation. But really, that's a misquote of actually the Seventh-day Church. One of their, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, one of their 8 pillars is everything good in moderation. They forgot the good. It's like that scripture verse. They say, money is the root of all evil. But really, the scripture verse says the love of money is the root of all evil. Everything good in moderation. And I feel like we're exposed enough. So we don't need to be like, I eat organic, but then 20% of it can be full of glyphosate. I look at my friend, he's got this shirt. What's that shirt say? Glyphosate is the real pandemic. So, somebody said true. We're getting glyphosate whether we want it or not, whether we eat organic or not. So we might as well purposefully seek out the organics. In the very least, to vote with our dollar and appreciate and thank these people. And you do get less. You're only going to then get the off sprays, or oh my God, if they're spraying us if the government's spraying us from the sky in chemtrails or whatever, that's out of our control. But what we can focus on, as Stephen Covey would say, the 7 habits of highly successful people, is we have this realm of concern, but then we have this circle of influence, the things that we can control. We're getting enough poison, so why voluntarily do it? So moderation with honey. You know, you could gorge and go crazy on honey. Moderation in fruit, moderation in whatever. Sunshine. I mean, you can overdo the sun and get sunburned, whatever. All right, let's get through this and you can do some questions. Oh, we got a lot of time left. Okay. Think of your questions, guys. We're going to have some time. I've talked already, so we've got to change, but I already talked about it earlier. Not change what you do, but change who you are and explore that. Not just say, hey, I can't be anxious anymore. I'm going to be somebody who 4 or 5 times a day, even if I set my phone to it, I'm going to stop and do the 60-second Sabbath. I'm going to be a prayer. Remember how we said earlier? We're not somebody who doesn't eat or doesn't drink conventional milk. We're people who buy organic milk. Number 2, we've got to find a higher purpose. I learned this when I fasted. If you were at my earlier talk, you heard about my Lyme. We had struggled with that for 10 years. It became who I was. And then I got into this fasting thing. I said, you know what? I got into so much pain, and I heard the power of fasting. And I wanted so bad to believe that the body does have the power to heal itself. And I thought of no better way to test that than to not do any supplements, not do any minerals. Very little minerals I did during that. Very little salt. I think I did salt for maybe 3 days. Nothing but water, and at that, room temperature water. I didn't even put ice in my water. I tried sparkling water during it, and it hurt my stomach. I said, let's just really test this. Does the body have the power to heal itself or not? And by the end of it, I cleared all my symptoms: muscle pain, muscle stiffness, a rash that I'd been dealing with for 10 years, brain fog, depression, all the things gone. And I said, why am I not happy? What's wrong? Actually, why am I the opposite? Why am I anxious about this? Because now all of a sudden I didn't know who I was anymore. Because I was someone who had Lyme. Rebecca will catch, I'll still say it sometimes. She'll say, you don't have, that's not who you are. Do not claim your diagnosis. But for so long I had, and now I was frightened. Because now what is my purpose? Why am I getting up in the morning? Because before I was getting up in the morning to find the solution and to heal. And it became even, oh, I'm that for my kids. I need to get healed so I can be there for my kids. Well, now I'm healed and I'm there for my kids. Now what? And so that maybe that's part of the, I didn't set out on a spiritual journey to fast. It was 100% health. But maybe that crept upon me. And maybe that's part of the little awakening I'm going through. Because otherwise you're going from just goal to goal. Even if your goal, I want to grow 100% of my own food. I want to heal. Well, what happens when you get there? Then what? Well, if you keep going down that route, you have to find another goal, and you're on this never-ending treadmill. You might as well have you might as well go back to the 9-to-5 job, rat race. So, join me in our search for a higher purpose. Number 3, discipline. That does help. When I was a young man, or a young boy, this will age me, my dad would make us work, and for us then, our work day was Saturday. I went to school during the week, we went to church on Sunday, and he would make us work, and everybody else my age was watching Saturday morning cartoons. And remember when that was the only time you could watch cartoons? There's no young people. We're all in the same boat here, aren't we? Some of you are like, I didn't even have cartoons on Saturday. What's a TV? I didn't even have the TV. All my friends are watching Saturday morning cartoons, and my dad's making us work. We're cutting up firewood, we're taking it to town and selling it. And I used to ask my dad, this is how hardcore he was. We're working, we're young boys, this will also age me. We're dreaming of Sylvester Stallone coming and helping us, Arnold and Schwarzenegger. We'd have these daydreams about them coming and helping us help carry these big, heavy locust posts we're splitting and putting in the ground as fence posts. We're having all these daydreams, but we're miserable. We're hating it. We hate it. And we say, hey, Dad, can we take a break? Can we rest? Let's take a break. You know what he would say to us? We'll rest when it's over. He's like, yeah, that's a good one. He's like, yeah, we'll rest when it's over. Well, guess what, folks? It's never over. The work is never done. So we got to have that higher purpose and meaning in that. But that developed discipline, didn't it? And having animals that need you every single day, opting into a homestead is going to develop discipline. And when you can discipline yourself to run a homestead or to fast for 24 hours, 3 days, how much more can you discipline yourself against the evil things, against the bad things? If you can discipline yourself from good things, Rebecca and I were real hardcore cold plungers there for a while. And she would tell people, they would say, why do you do it? Why do you get in 50-degree water for 3 minutes? And you're just freezing, it's miserable. And one reason is, and really one true benefit of that is if you can force your body to get in cold water, as soon as you get in that cold water, everything in you wants to jump out. But if your mind can overcome your body and say, stay here, it's okay. We're in control. This is okay. Just, you can't say relax. Just relax. That'd be like telling a woman to relax, right? Doesn't work. Calm down. Is that right up there with calm down and relax? How well does that work, women? She's like that. Okay. Chill out. Is that another one? There's no magic word along this idea that we're trying to get through, Aaron, right? Aaron says, shh. No, that's going to get you slapped across the face. You found out the hard way. That doesn't work. Shh. I'll try that next time. We'll see if that works on you, Rebecca. All right. Discipline. Hot and cold therapy, have I tried it? Yes. Good, good. That's where you go from maybe a sauna, I imagine you're using, to cold plunge. Yeah, okay. Going back from hot to cold. We've tried it. We've tried everything. Short of bee venom and urine therapy. I talked about that earlier. If I knew it would work, for sure. Oh, she says, I still don't know. We're going to keep our search. Oh, yeah. I mean, one time we heard about this urine therapy, and it was maybe March 31st, January, February, yeah, ish. Oh, it was April 1st. Rebecca heard about this urine therapy, and she probably thought it was an April Fool's joke, but it wasn't. But she did think, oh, it's April Fool's. Let's go home to the kids. We were both in town. Let's go home to the kids, and let's give them some cups, little tiny cups. No, we put cups in the bathroom, and then we set down the kids real serious like, and we rarely do this with them, so they took us serious. We said, kids, you know your mom and I have been dealing with chronic illness, and we heard this thing, it's called urine therapy, and we went into it and tried to convince them. And they were what, 16, 14, 12, that kind of age, okay? So they're starting to kind of question us. We don't know all the answers kind of thing. They're starting to figure that out. And it was interesting to see who would obey us. And we had a little reward for those who would obey us. They didn't know it because the cups were in the bathroom, but we put little pieces of chocolate in the bathroom, in the little cups. Yeah, with their name on it. But it was fun to see. You know, the oldest son, he might be reluctant. You know how the oldest kid is, but he's kind of the first to go in and sign up. The middle child, of course, was he even going to do it? Oh, no. No, Joseph wasn't going to do it. But that was kind of hey guys, if you want to know where your kids are in their loyalty to you, go home from this conference and tell them about urine therapy. Give them cups, see if they do it. And I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it. If some of y'all are doing that and it's helping you, good for you. We're happy for you. We're happy for you. The fourth thing I was going to say about change is to never give up. I had the privilege of going to Honduras and serving at an orphanage there, working. There was only 14 staff and 400 kids. And so I went there with this attitude, and this might have been a mistake. I said, hey, I'll do whatever. I'll do whatever. I say it was a mistake because the next day I'm up at 4 a.m. and not quitting till 6, 7, 8 at night. And it was that way 7 days a week. But they put me on the farm, and I had 3 jobs. And oftentimes I would be put in charge of 10 to 60 group of young middle school, high school Spanish kids, or not Spanish kids, Hondurans. I only knew one word of Spanish going into that, and that was hola. But I learned real quick. They told me you have 3 jobs. 1, that they never stop working. 2, that they don't fight with each other and kill each other. We are mowing the grass with machetes. And 3, that they don't run away. So I learned real quick, I wanted to get down there and just machete with them. But I learned I was more effective as a leader, as pain in the butt that it was, to go through with those 3 tasks. And I learned real quick, nunca para trabajando. Never stop working. Never give up. Even when there's no hope. A great book, Skeletons of Sahara. It's a survival book. I've read it in some of my darkest injuries and chronic issues. These men were shipwrecked in the Sahara Desert, and they were doomed to die. And this was in the, I don't know, 1700s, something crazy, way back. And they're stranded in the Sahara Desert, and they start going. So there's going to be hostility from the native people there, and the ship is wrecked. There's no name it. Name the thing you want to abstain from. Name the thing you want to opt out of. Then try to do an exercise. What do I opt in? It did not take us long to figure out that perhaps I should opt into prayer, even if it's silent prayer, even if it's listening prayer, and not just me talking. I'll say this again. It's worth saying. because I'll probably be forever grateful. We went to an Amish family before this and lived with them for 2 days. And I'm thankful for them for letting me document that experience. I didn't film their persons, but I would be able to film the experience. And every time before a meal, they would say, let us say silent grace. I don't know so many Amish people to know if that was individualistic for their family or if that's their whole culture. Where are they? The time I need an Amish person, they're not here. What? It's the whole culture. I had never seen about that. I had never heard about that. But before the meal, I think they call it, what'd they call it? What'd they call it, Rebecca? Silent grace. Okay. And we just stood there and took off the hat and we just stood there. I don't know, 30 seconds or so. Nobody said a thing. And he was polite enough to say, if you want to do something, go ahead now. And I said, that was great. And we did that, didn't we? So, who knows? So maybe that's something we opt into. Opt out of something, opt into something. Number 2, talk with yourself. Or ask, or if you're a believer, ask God. And do this, kind of like what we did earlier. I had a mentor tell me when he first invited me to Africa this year. I ended up going with him, but when he first contacted me, he said, ask God what you should do with this. And so I did, and I just tried to hear myself talk. You hear all kinds of crazy things in your head, and you try to decipher, well, what is God? Is this God, or is this just my crazy mind thinking, and just walking through that? But that's a good prompt, isn't it? What would you have me do with this? What would you have me do with this information? What do I, if I'm opting out of something, what do I opt into? And then just listen. Listen to that monkey mind. Some people call it that monkey mind. It's jetting all over the place. Did you know language is a modern technology? Our mind thinks so much quicker than we can communicate with our language. You know, you think, you can understand typing's modern, right? But it goes back to then first language. But our mind is so much quicker than we can even speak it. Number 3, so we're taking these steps. We're naming it. Number 2, we're asking ourselves, and we're sitting in silence. What is it? What do you want me to do with this? Number 3, what environment can I change? And homesteading, going into a homesteading environment is very conducive to a lot of good positive change. Getting exercise, getting sun exposure, getting cold exposure, exercise, eating well, sleeping well. It's staying at home, being connected. It's very conducive. Rebecca and I talked earlier when she and I got on this health journey, and we went through the stage where we were eating paleo, and you were supposed to eat this amount of much of meat a day, this amount of vegetables a day, and it was like 12 servings of vegetables and something crazy gram amount of meat. When you just focused on meeting that, it was hard to have any more room in your belly for anything else. So, number 4, just take one step. Even if there's no hope, just keep going. Take one step. If you want to take if you want to have anything written in your journal today, in your notes, write down the one step you feel like you're hearing, that your truest, most inner self is talking to you from this presentation. What is that one thing? What is that one step? People say, how did you get to where you are with the homestead? And we're there. We have arrived. We have the milk cows. We have 3. We have the sheep. We have the chickens, the turkeys, the meat chickens, the pigs. Am I missing anything? The 8,000 square foot garden, the 1,400 square foot garden and chicken system in the front yard. We are there. We are here, and our sons are running it at home, and daughter. We have arrived. But it took one step at a time. And I say we have arrived, and we really have. It feels like we have, but we still haven't. There's still always one more step. Right now, I've showed many of you pictures. If you come through and talk to me long enough about what the kids are doing back home, I'll pull out my phone and I'll show you the cold room they're building and finishing for me while I'm here. But that's one step. Next year, so last year we didn't have a cold room in place. We hauled it to the butcher and had them hang our cow for the 2 weeks. And then we went and got it and brought it home and parted it ourselves. Next year, or this year, we won't have to do that. We'll have our cold room. And next year, we won't. And so we're still hauling out hoses on butchering day for the chickens. But one day we'll have PVC water lines in our butchering shed. And we won't have to do that. It's just one step at a time. And then we got about 10 minutes for questions. The last point here in step number 5 would be to have community. Yeah, that's one thing the Amish have over us, is that sense of community and deciding things together and going in the same path together. But you can find your community. And how do you, people will say to me, how do you find community? And they might be up, moving and going to community. And I'm thinking, no, we've gotten it all wrong. You're wanting to be a consumer as someone who's searching community, and nobody wants that. Nobody's going to have you because you have the wrong mindset, because you need to be a giver if you're going to do community well. And so I'll say, if you want to find community, you've got to be community. And at first, for Rebecca and I, that was posting online. That was just sharing our journey online and building community in chat. And then somebody emails us and say, hey, can I come visit? Yeah, and then we find real community, don't we? And all kinds of benefits from that. We find accountability through that, sharing that journey, and that might be for you with other people in real time or online, and then eventually it ends up in something really beautiful and in person. Do you guys have any comments, questions, derogatory remarks? Yes?
You mentioned that you had Lyme and that you fasted to get rid of it. How long did you have to fast to get rid of that?
Okay, she wondered, she said you had Lyme and you fasted to get rid of it. How long did it go? I went for 28 days with just water, sometimes minerals in it, sometimes salt, but very little. I came off of it because a speaking event was coming up. I felt like I had plateaued. I had healed everything but this consistent rash. And you can't just not eat for 28 days and then just go eat a steak. That would be called refeeding syndrome, and you could die. So you have to ease into it. And so I used the GAPS diet. Anybody heard of that? It's very Weston A. Price friendly. But it's a gut healing diet. And it's called the GAPS diet. GAPS. Rebecca will probably tell you what it stands for. Gut and psychological syndrome. Broth for the first 3 days. Broth for the first 3 days, just lamb broth. It never tasted so good. You could just feel the nutrients. And by the way, if you have a distaste for your homegrown food, just don't eat for a month. You'll love it all. Liver, chicken feet. I was putting chicken feet in my soup, y'all. Heart, you'll want all that good stuff. Broth. And then it goes into a meat-based soup, so just boiled meat in the broth, and then boiled vegetables in the broth, and then raw eggs in it, and then maybe some sour cream in it, and it just progresses. I healed it all during that process. Even the rash went away during the refeeding. Anybody else? Yes?
You talk about opting out.
Yeah.
I got involved with the town council,
Okay.
and this is sort of the second level. You're talking about opting out personally.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, then there's the opting out as a community.
Oh, nice.
And the issue revolved around compliance with idiotic government regulations.
Wow.
And I said, we need to opt out. Just say no.
Yeah.
And it just takes it to a different level, and it goes to some of the issues that Dell was and Joe Salatin have been addressing.
That's very good.
With respect to people trying to control us.
Yeah.
And it didn't go over very well.
Yeah. He's talking about how I'm talking about opting out individually, but there's another level, and that's where you opt out as a community. Perhaps you opt out collectively over a government regulation or something like that, which that'd be pretty amazing. I also think about this too, as you said that. We opted out of the smart meter. We don't want the smart meter on our house because of the EMFs. We want that analog meter. You can get out of your car and come read it. And I think though, what happens if everybody opted out? What happens if way more people opted out of that?
Freedom.
Freedom, right? We got to somehow get together. They don't want us to get together and decide together. We were at I was at Joel's event last week, and he was talking about his food emancipation proclamation, how he wants it to become legal that a neighbor can sell food to a neighbor. And so one of the things was there was 300 people there, maybe similar to what's in this room right now. What happens if you 300 people just decided to sell food to your neighbor? Because it's the right thing to do, whether it's legal or not. And Joel said, what are they going to do, throw us all in jail? What'd you say? Farmers markets is a lot like that, yeah. But what Joel's talking about is, and that's legal, but Joel's talking about a chicken pot pie. You can't legally do that without a commercial kitchen. These kinds of things. Raw milk, a good example. You cannot sell raw milk unless you're finding the loophole like herd shares or pet milk.
Justin,
Yes?
you said you opted out of the smart meter. I tried to do that.
Yeah.
They told me they would shut my utility off.
Isn't that crazy? She tried to opt out of the smart meter, and they said they'd tell her turn her utility off.
They'll tell you anything to get you to do what they want you to do. They came to my house 4 times and I called the sheriff.
Whoa.
And I want these people off my property.
Wow.
And
Good for you.
know what? I don't have a smart meter.
Good for you. Yeah, they're tricky like that, aren't they?
They'll lie to your face. And what I used was in Medina Homer in California, they've already had lawsuits against the smart meter and they've won against them. So you already have the law on your side.
Yeah.
Use it.
Yeah, she's talking about knowing your rights and how they'll take advantage, and that they came and visited her 4 times to put in a smart meter, and she refused. And finally, she called the sheriff. And now you do not have a smart meter.
No, I have a purple tag that says no smart meter.
Yeah. Yep. Rebecca likes you. That's it.
You try to tell them this kind of stuff and they don't believe what you got to say.
Yeah.
They wanna put their heads into watching sports and knowing everybody on the team
Yeah.
and whatnot. You can't, I mean, it's like where I work, we got a union. And these guys think walking around with shirts and pins that say our union on it makes us united. It's because it's contract. But 3 years prior, we don't care if we screw over the next guy every day. And they actually believe the company believes that we're united.
Yeah.
They can't unite. And it's the same thing in most society. Most people can't unite or they fear what they may lose if
Yeah.
they fight.
Yeah. Right. Anybody else? I think we've done. I think they called it. So, all right, if you want to see me, we'll spend a little more time over at our booth in C, at tent C. So if you want to see us, come see us now, because we'll be packing up soon. But we'll do pictures, sign a book, whatever you want. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been good being here.
All right, we have one more speaker to close out the event. It's hard to believe we're there already. We appreciate all of you coming out. But we have a special treat. Ruth Ann Zimmerman is, oh, listen to that. She's got fans out here. So please welcome Ruth Ann Zimmerman to the stage.
here I am, like half-cocked and not quite ready. We're very tired, aren't we? Are you guys all tired? I am very tired. All right, I might have to go back and find my mic guy for just a minute. Okay, this is, I mean, I love you guys, but this is my least favorite time of the day to present. Because you're tired, I'm tired, and there's a very good chance that somehow throughout the day I have spilled something on myself and have to get up in front of you with chocolate on my dress. But today that didn't happen. I was very good. But we're still full to the top of good information, right? So I'm not going to ask you for a lot of participation. I'm just going to let you sit there and relax. And I had just told John back there, just let Justin keep going. I'm very tired. If he takes up some of my spot, it's okay. So this morning we talked about eating from your homestead for highest nutrition, right? Making sure that your resource of time and money equals nutrition. We even talked a little bit about supplements and how to replace those expensive supplements from your own land. Who of you burden anyone with, I can never buy protein powder again, I can never buy collagen again? This is just to start the wheels turning in your brain and think for yourself. So here's what I want you to think for yourself. Here's what I thought to myself. Wait a minute. You're telling me, let's take green beans, for example. I told you I was going to pick on avocados, and I'm going to get to that part. But let's take green beans, for example. Green beans that I didn't grow. Green beans that I'm going to buy fresh from the grocery store in the winter because that's what my family supposedly needs to stay healthy. They're grown in soil that, number one, is depleted, has been treated with herbicides, and then the bean plants have been sprayed with pesticides and maybe even fungicides. And then they are picked, and they are refrigerated, and they are shipped for hundreds and thousands of miles. And then they end up on your grocery store shelf, where you buy them and you cook them for your family. And then let's compare the green beans that grow in my garden. Number one, this is a garden that I have been tending for 25 years. And I mend the soil faithfully. And I put back into the soil. And I'm raising these plants, and I'm not treating them with anything. The soil has not been sprayed in herbicides since we lived there. And that's 26 years. I don't know, it was just yard before that. We have never sprayed for any bugs in our garden, not even with neem oil or anything like that. We just pick the bugs off if we see them, and that's a whole other presentation. So then when these beans are ripe, I pick them, put them into jars, and preserve them through pressure canning, and they are usually on my shelf, pressure canned, within probably 2 to 3 hours of being picked. That is how you preserve nutrition, because what happens is when you remove fruit from its vine, an enzyme goes to work. And a tomato actually works very well for this, because most of you have probably seen what happens to a tomato when it falls to the ground. You pick a tomato when it's ripe. And when a tomato is ripe, it should like kind of fall into your hand, right? It releases because that enzyme's already gone to work, breaking down the fruit right around the stem. Because your tomato, all of your crops, the only thing that they know that they're created to do is to reproduce. And tomatoes don't know that you want to harvest them for your family. Sometimes, if we raise tomatoes from seedlings, we can get our feelings hurt when our tomatoes get blight, because we feel like these tomatoes aren't as invested in this relationship as we are, right? But tomato doesn't know that. You all know that. I'm being sarcastic. Anyway, this tomato releases from the vine, falls to the ground, and this enzyme goes to work, turns all the fleshy bits of the tomato into compost. Inside of this rich little compost pile are all of the seeds, and that seed is going to sprout. And now you have new baby tomatoes. That is the life cycle of the tomato. What we want to do as gardeners that are focused on feeding our family for the highest nutrition possible is we want to interrupt that cycle exactly at the peak of nutrition. And the peak of nutrition is going to be when that fruit naturally releases. But we don't want the tomato to land to the ground, right, and bruise, so we're gonna get it just a little before that. And then we're gonna take that tomato to the house, and we are gonna capture that nutrition. And when we process the tomato, we stop that enzyme that turns it into compost. We stop that from turning it into compost, and we preserve the highest nutrition. And that tomato product that is now in my jar is more nutritious than a grocery store tomato in January that has been grown hydroponically in water or in a greenhouse. And what happens when you grow tomatoes in a commercial greenhouse, they are getting treated for fungicides weekly. And that soil, they are fertilizing with synthetic fertilizers because they are growing crop after crop after crop of tomato in that greenhouse. That is commercially produced tomato that you will find on the grocery store shelf in January. So, which has more nutrition? The tomato that I captured at highest nutrition and canned it, or from the grocery store shelf? My tomato, grown in my nutrient-dense soil, picked at peak ripeness, preserved within hours. That tomato is what I want to feed to my family. The tomato that I buy at the grocery store in January is only going to be to add some moisture to a burger, maybe. I don't actually count it as nutrition. So when you eat from the homestead, you're simply eating for highest nutrition. And that is going to be the things that you have canned and preserved that grew on your land. So another example that I like to make is because I really like pineapples, right? They're really good. They don't grow in Iowa. It gets 30 below there in the wintertime. No pineapples. So if I go to the grocery store and I see I don't know about you, but I like the pineapples that they've already cut up and put into containers, because you know which pineapples they do that to? The ones that are overripe. Overripe pineapples are the best, in my opinion. I also like overripe bananas, but so I can see that pineapple, and my mouth starts watering. But I know that our apple tree at home is loaded with apples. So if I'm eating to please my taste buds, I'm going to get the pineapple and enjoy it on the way home. But the highest nutrition is going to be those apples on our apple tree, because they grew right there, and I can pick it and eat the nutrition within minutes of it being picked. So that is why eating regionally from your region is eating for the highest nutrition, because it's not been shipped for miles. And it's often being grown in soil, in your local soil. You can talk to the farmer, you can find out what practices he uses to amend his soil, or you can grow it yourself. So, simply thinking to myself, what food, if you can't grow it yourself, what food grows here, and what food is growing now? In our area in Iowa right now is strawberry season. So we stuff ourselves with strawberries until we can hold no more strawberries, right? Everybody's tired of strawberries. The rest of them go into the freezer, and we eat them all winter long. Next to strawberries comes raspberries, and I'm working on some blueberries, but they don't really like to grow where I live, but I'm trying to force them to. So then we run out of strawberries. We don't go buy grocery store strawberries. We just eat the next thing. We've been tricked into believing that we need access to all foods all the time. That is, we don't have to have access to all foods all the time. If it's your birthday or your anniversary, go buy any food that you want. But the bulk of our nutrition as homesteaders should come from what we are growing. and what we are raising on our own land. It's the same with, like, let's say eggs. In the season of abundant eggs, every meal includes eggs at our house, because that is nutrition that we are in control of. And that it doesn't ever hurt anybody to eat eggs 3 meals a day. Okay, are you with me? Are you falling asleep? Okay, I'm gonna say it again. If avocados don't grow who lives where avocados grow? All right, you can have avocados. The rest of us should not for a minute think that we need avocados in our kitchen for every meal. The more you stay out of the grocery store, you all know this, the more you stay out of the grocery store, the less junk you're going to buy. So simply eating what grows where you live is a great way to simplify your diet. And then when it comes to gardening, we don't need to try to grow every single crop. You grow sustenance crops. So you think about it this way, your sustenance crops are the ones that grow in abundance where you live. They grow without a whole lot of coaxing, not blueberries for me. But I mean, I like a good gardening challenge, right? For us, it's sweet corn, green beans, potatoes, and red raspberries. Those are like we can also grow apples in abundance. Pears don't do quite as well where we live. Plums do well. Those are our sustenance crops. Most of my energy is going to go into growing those things. Squash, winter squash, I can store winter squash and potatoes, and there's a lot of nutrients in them, and they actually become tastier, winter squash anyway, as the winter goes on. They develop more flavor as they cure. Those are your sustenance crops. You don't have to try to grow all these other things. And in around your sustenance crops, you can put some lettuce and kale if you want. I personally hate kale. Who's with me? You know why I grow kale? You will see kale in my garden. Who knows why I grow kale? My cows love kale. So I'll pick kale and give it to the cows, and they'll come up and eat it right out of my hand. So I grow kale. Okay, I have been asked numerous times to do gardening presentations, and I won't do it because gardening varies so greatly from region to region. And where I live, we have some of the most fertile farmland in the entire world. So I could stand up here and say, things just grow. I just put seeds in the ground and things grow, and you all would think that I'm the best gardener ever. Truth is, I just live in a different region than you do. So I don't talk a lot about gardening, but I'm gonna leave you with this about gardening. Garden as if you didn't have a plan B. Garden as if whatever I grow is what my family is going to eat all winter long. And that'll help you narrow down the crops that you're gonna put the most effort into. So the mindset shift that we need to adopt in our garden is we have to stop eating for convenience. We have to stop making convenience about food. Now, don't get me wrong, there is times when convenience, like we just need to feed these people. We need to feed these boys before they start feeding off of each other, right? And we're gonna stop at a gas station and get them something to eat, and we're gonna move on. It's an 80-20 rule, right? 80% of our diet comes from the homestead. The other 20% we don't even worry about. It's not gonna hurt us. Because what's gonna hurt us more is the fear over that 20%. Fear is gonna hurt you more than gas station pizza in the long run. Okay, another thing about gardening is I am from a long line of gardeners. Every woman in my family tree, as far back as I can remember, or as far back as the stories go, has gardened as if their life depended on it. So I have an advantage there too. It is in my DNA. I don't know anything except long rows of peas and corn and beans. That's just who I am. That's who my ancestors were. So garden as if your family's life depends on it, and as if there was no plan B. Make sure you purchase quality seeds. Most of the time, gardens fail because people are purchasing seeds at Walmart. Those seeds are not quality seeds. And peas, people will say, oh, I bought my peas at Walmart. They maybe had 2 dozen seeds and they got 6 pea plants. Do you know how many English peas I plant for my family? 1.5 pounds of seeds. Find a seed supplier. Berlin Seeds is local here. Tell them I want to garden like Ruth Ann, and they'll send you with 1.5 pounds of pea seeds. Then you're gonna have to build a fence, and then you're gonna call me and say, what am I doing? And I'm like, beans are easier to grow. Grow beans. I grow peas because I like peas with fresh raw butter at Christmas time, but we don't ever grow enough peas so that we can have peas every day like I want to. Green beans are our sustenance crop. They are our everyday vegetable because I can grow them in abundance. Peas take a lot more work. And even if you have 2 bushels of English peas, you know what you're gonna end up with when you're done? A couple gallon bags full of peas. So peas are our special occasion food because they don't grow in abundance. Sweet corn is another one of our sustenance crops because we can grow so much of it. So don't give up and tell yourself you're a bad gardener if you haven't purchased quality seeds. All right. I already talked about interrupting the cycle of gardening for the highest nutrition and preserving it. I've gotten way ahead of my, okay, let's talk about this. Thinking regionally and seasonally about protein. So protein source is very, very important, and I talked about this a little bit in my question and answer, is if you're new to homesteading, my best advice for you is don't start with a garden. A garden is much more likely to burn you out the first year than raising meat chickens. Meat chickens or raising your own protein is going to save you a lot of money, add a whole lot of wholesome nutrition to your diet, because your home pasture-raised meat chicken versus the grocery store chicken is going to make you a believer. And it's only gonna take you 6 to 8 weeks to get like 300 pounds of meat into your freezer. It's an intense 6 to 8 weeks, but start with your protein source. You can raise meat chickens in like 8 weeks. Yes, right there.
Where would you source your chickens?
Okay, that's a good question. Sourcing meat chickens? There's a lot of hatcheries. I'm sure there's one in this area. I source mine from Murray McMurray. They're from Iowa. There's also Hoover's Hatchery in Iowa. But Murray McMurray has treated me very well. And we got 78 chickens, baby chicks, last week. And when I left home a couple days ago, we hadn't lost one yet. So I may be oversimplifying it because I've been raising baby chicks forever and ever, so it comes second nature to me. But literally, you need a heat lamp and some chick feed and some water to get them started. And then we put them out on pasture in a chicken tractor, and our chicken tractor is not big enough for 78 chicks once they get meaty, right? So what do? We put them in the pasture up by the house. We open the door every morning. We set their food and water outside, and those Cornish cross hens roam that pasture all day, and they don't just sit at the feeder. And then we lock them up again at night. And guess who else roams that pasture? Our donkeys. Our donkeys tend to keep everything else at bay. And then we lock them up at night, and 8 weeks later, we have a long, grueling day. Okay, do you know what my least favorite part of homesteading is? Chicken butchering day. I will sometimes let my chickens get so big because I'm like, not this week. I am a very disciplined person, but I do not like butchering chickens. Which is why we raise the Cornish cross, because to get, say, 5 pounds of meat into my freezer, I only have to butcher 1 chicken, versus some of the smaller ones, I have to do twice as much butchering to get the same amount of meat into my freezer. However, we've started making it more of a, and if you're a mom, you know how this works. If mom can keep her emotions in check, everything will go better. So I'm trying to make this a positive experience for the whole family, because I started realizing that everybody was having the same attitude about chicken butchering as I had. So I'm working hard at rebuilding our attitude towards chicken butchering, and just be like, it's going to be okay, we're all gonna work together, and we're gonna get it done. And I'm trying to keep a positive attitude, because relationships are primarily built on positive shared experiences. And I have challenged myself to make Chicken Butchering Day a positive shared experience for the entire family. And I think what happened is, I don't think my mom liked chicken butchering. I don't have any fond memories as a child of Chicken Butchering Day. But I know that my grandma loved chicken butchering, because I have very vivid memories of her eating the feet, like a corn cob. Like she just ate all of that meat off of the feet. She was let me see, she was born in 1920, so she was in the Depression. That's how she was raised. You don't waste anything. So I'm going to turn over a new leaf, and in a year from now, you ask me how our chicken butchering went, but I'm determined that my children are gonna have a positive memory of chicken butchering, so that one day they can say, Mom, you can stay in the house with the grandbabies, we will butcher all the chickens. That's my goal. I will have arrived when that day happens. So raising your own protein. One of the things to remember, we've become a society that lives out of the grocery store, right? And one of my nephews once said to my brother, to his dad, next time we butcher a pig, let's just get the whole pig turned into bacon. Right? Everybody's favorite part is the bacon. Because what happens is we get so accustomed to running to the grocery store to replenish our bacon, but when you start eating from the homestead, bacon becomes a special occasion food, because there is not that much on each pig. So bacon is 1 pound per weekend, either Saturday or Sunday mornings, and when we run out, we run out, and we do not have bacon again until we butcher more pigs. If you eat bacon every morning for breakfast, you're gonna eat your way through dozens of pigs worth of bacon in a year, or our family would anyway. It's the same with brisket. Do you know how many briskets you get from one cow? 2. You get 2 pieces of brisket from one cow. Do you know how long it takes to raise a cow to butchering age? 2 years. So what does that mean? You get 1 brisket per year. Brisket is for Christmas or Thanksgiving. When we start eating from the homestead, those become special occasion foods. But we've fallen so out of the rhythm that we think bacon should be accessible all the time, and that brisket can be a once-a-month thing. When one of our daughters got married a couple years ago, we served brisket, and when I went to pick it up, we of course didn't raise it, we don't have that many cows. When I went to pick it up at the butcher shop, I was very, very convicted about how long it took to raise so many cows, and how much ground beef we would have to eat to catch up to all that brisket if we would have raised all of that. But that's because for so many years now, we had been eating according to what we can raise, and brisket becomes special occasion food. Chicken breasts or chicken tenders are the same way. Chicken tenders, if you get a bag of chicken tenders from the grocery store, do you know how much other chicken meat you would have to eat to catch up to how many chicken tenders you just consumed? My family could probably eat a dozen chickens worth of chicken tenders. That is a lot of lesser quality chicken meat that we have to catch up on. So what happens to all of that, right? So eating according to what you can grow means chicken tenders are not an option. Chicken breast always is gone first, because we part our chickens out when we butcher them. And so Eating according to what you grow is a great mindset for you to adopt to become a successful homesteader because it simplifies your diet. When the chicken breast is all gone, I am sorry. From here on out, it is legs and thighs if you want chicken. We're not gonna go buy lesser quality food with the hard-earned resource of time and money. No, we just start balancing and simplifying our diet to reflect what we can grow. And if that means we have to eat a whole lot of sausage to catch up to our love of bacon, that's the way it's going to be. Now, I don't beat myself up over it. You should have seen one of our sons at the motel this morning. So there's bacon. And if you know our family, you know that 1 pound of bacon per weekend means we might each get 2 or 3 pieces of bacon. And this was like a whole buffet pan full of bacon. And he comes back with a plate mounded with bacon. So you're gonna have those moments where your children are like, ah. When they grow up and have their own homes, they can eat as much bacon as they want. But as for me and my home, I'm not gonna use our hard-earned money to buy lesser quality bacon when I know I can grow it off of table scraps and skim milk and a little pig food. So another thing that I wanted to say about the garden and our sons, so we have friends that came to visit us, and they were vegan, right? My sons have never met anybody that was vegan. They were very, very sad because these people couldn't partake in our ice cream and our butter and, you know, all the good food that they enjoy. So a couple weeks later, we were working really hard in the garden, the kids and I, and the sweat was just running. And one of our sons goes, "A good thing we aren't vegan because we would die today." Meaning, like, he put 2 and 2 together, looked around and said, there's not enough calories in this garden to sustain me. I have worked so hard. I need meat. I need milk. And so what he didn't know is that vegans have a different, like, they eat from around the world. They're not just eating from a little plot of land. And so that is, but he wasn't wrong. Like, if I had to give something up, that's probably the least nutrient-dense food, and I would have to give up my garden. I would cry all the way. But just to say, don't start with a garden. Start with securing your protein source and making sure it's a highly nutritious protein source, like home-raised chickens, or find somebody that's raising them for you. I talked about the season of abundant eggs. My favorite way to preserve eggs, who knows? Water glassing, we don't like water glassed eggs. On the counter, olive oil, no. It's better, it gets much better. Pasta. You can make pasta and dry it, and pasta takes a lot of eggs, and you have pasta for the whole year, except I don't make that big of a batch. I usually make pasta and we have it for 2 or 3 months. The recipe is in my book. When I left, there was about 12 books left, but don't worry, you can order my books online as well. Pasta is my favorite way to preserve eggs, and otherwise we just eat a lot of eggs. We didn't like water-glassed eggs. We eat egg salad sandwiches, we eat deviled eggs, we eat egg sandwiches for breakfast. My boys know how to make their own eggs whenever they want. They can fry an egg in as much butter as they want. And they'll have that for snacks, or anytime they're hungry, they'll go fry themselves an egg. Okay, I am getting to the end of my slides, but I'm gonna open it up for questions then, so start thinking. I am not plugged in, so I can't show you my slide, but be brave enough to create your family's food pyramid according to what you can grow. And then the most nutrient-dense food goes on the bottom of your food pyramid. For my family's food pyramid, we have all of our meat and eggs on the very bottom because protein is the cornerstone of everything else. Protein acts as the little cars that take all your other nutrients to where they need to be. So protein works as distributing your nutrients. On the next bar of our food pyramid, we have all of our dairy products: cheese, yogurt, smoothies, butter. Of course, all the butter goes there. Next, we have our fruits and vegetables. And this counts also for canned and frozen and fermented fruits and vegetables. Are you wondering where the grains are? Next, we have whole grains, or grains in general. And when I put this food pyramid on the internet, people were offended that whole grains are not a larger part of our diet. And it's okay, I wasn't offended that they were offended, but here's why. We have to buy our whole grains in. That is why they're all the way up there. Everything that we can grow and raise is the bulk of our nutrition. I have nothing against whole grains. When my kids were little and I couldn't go out and garden and milk the cows as much as I can now, I depended a lot more on whole grains for quick and easy nutrition for my toddlers. It was much easier for me to make a couple loaves of bread or waffles than it was for me to go out and milk a cow and make a wheel of aged cheese. Right? You all know that if you have little ones. You can make bread or whatever with whole grains. But now, with bringing beef and pork and chicken and eggs and milk into the house on a daily basis, I'm not going to spend my resources bringing in whole grains because I have to buy them. The bulk of our nutrition is going to come from what we can raise on the homestead. And I feel like with all of the things that we are raising, I am covering the bases. And so then, of course, at the very top is our sweets and our occasionally, ice cream that we buy when we don't make it. Okay, the other thing, and I don't know if I have these slides, but what I wanted to tell you is think about all the food that you're consuming as a family. Whole foods are foods that are unaltered or altered very little and are in their whole form. So for me, whole foods is all of our raw dairy, our beef, not like processed, not meat sticks and things like that, but like a beef that I get out of the freezer and prepare without a lot of extra, you're not adding nitrates or things like that, like you are for bacon or lunch meat or anything like that. So whole foods, fruits and veggies, foods that are in their whole form, these should make up the bulk of every meal. Next is your traditionally prepared foods, and this is usually canned, frozen, or fermented. So sourdough bread would be traditionally prepared, canned and frozen foods, even cheese. Your aged cheese falls under your traditionally prepared. And traditionally prepared means nutrients are intact or altered very little or even enhanced, like when you ferment them, they're enhanced. So then you know where this is going. Next is processed. Processed foods are foods that have 5 or more ingredients when you make them. These are processed foods as we go down the list. And then, of course, there's highly processed foods, which have like 5 to 10 ingredients and often include things like corn syrup, natural flavors, all of that. Ultra-processed foods, guess what's on the top of the list for ultra-processed foods? Salad dressings, because they often contain a lot of seed oils and like flavor enhancers. Have you ever wondered why ranch is suddenly what all the kids are putting on everything? It's all the flavor enhancers in there. So if you want to start replacing things, start with the ultra process. And sad to say, a lot of supplements fall into the highly processed food category because they are so altered from their whole food version. So if you want to go back, if you want to start simplifying your diet, look at everything and say, what is the whole food version of this? Or what is the whole food version of this where I could get the same amount of nutrients? If it's a protein bar, guess what? You can eat a hard-boiled egg, or you can eat a slice of last night's leftover roast and get the same amount of protein. And, well, I don't know if it's exactly the same, but it is in the version that your body recognizes as food. And your body doesn't have to sort through all the junk to find its nutrition. So if you want to start somewhere, start with the ultra-processed. And look for your things in your kitchen that have 10 or more ingredients. Let's say ranch dressing. Do you know how easy ranch dressing is to make? Extremely easy. And if you watch my YouTube video, you saw one of my tricks where I make homemade ranch dressing and put it into the Hidden Valley Ranch bottle. And my kids use it. And it's so much better. But they will know. If your kids have refined palates like some of mine, they will know because it's missing those flavor enhancers. They will say what's wrong with the ranch. And then you're gonna have the dialogue of flavor enhancers. This is what happens. You're just looking for a dopamine hit. We shouldn't get dopamine hits from food. That's not the way God designed our bodies. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up to let you know that even if you feed your family the most pure diet available in the entire world, if you miss the very best thing, so all of these things that we're talking about, these are good things. They're very good things. They are gifts from God, and we should use them. We should use our knowledge, but they are not the best thing. The very best thing is knowing that Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins. And if I feed my family the very best food in the entire world, but neglect to teach them that and give them all opportunity to know Him, I have missed it. I have not done what God has put me here to do. And if I say everything that I've said to you guys this weekend and forget to tell you that how much God loves you, I've not done a bit of good. It does not matter what you feed your children if you neglect to feed their souls. So if this weekend you have started to feel overwhelmed with everything you are doing wrong, I want you to know that if you look your children in the eyes and say, God loves you and I love you, then you have done everything right so far. Everything that you've learned here this weekend is a gift from God, but it is not God. There is a difference, and I don't for a minute want you to make homesteading or this way of life a God. You keep it in its proper place, and you keep fear in its proper place, and you know that God loves you, and you are on the right track. Everything else is just a gift. All right, I have 20 minutes left. Do you want to take the 20 minutes? Okay, I'll do a couple questions, and then we will move on. This is a good question. Do I ever keep seeds from my homegrown vegetables for the next year? I am fairly new to saving seeds, so I don't have a lot of experience, but I am planting more and more heirloom vegetables that the seeds are easy to save and are true to themselves, because I want to have that skill and I want to pass that skill on, because what if we can't, find a seed bank to buy seeds? So I do keep some, but there's also some plant varieties that I really love, the hybrid versions, and like sweet corn, I love a hybrid sweet corn. It's good and juicy and sweet, and I can sink my teeth into it, and it comes out of the freezer tasting like pure summertime. I will probably always plant hybrid sweet corn, which I don't save the seeds from that. But I do have a couple plants that, like sustenance plants, like dry beans, things like that, that I am saving seeds from. Okay, more questions? You're actually gonna let me off? Hey. Okay, so talking about protecting the meat birds, she had something dig under her meat bird tractor and eat all her meat birds. I'm guessing it was a weasel or a raccoon. Yes, so, and how my donkeys protect our chicken tractor. Okay, so two things. You don't all go out and buy donkeys, right? Because not all donkeys are the same. The Premier one makes an electric fence. I would put an electric fence around my chicken tractor because raccoons will respect an electric fence. Or those netting, like it's electric netting, and put that around your chicken tractor. But my donkeys, the smell of donkey urine will keep most predators away because donkeys are known to trample raccoons and weasels. But also donkeys have a mind of their own, and if they don't feel like it, they're like, ugh. But their urine will deter pests. The other thing I've found is with raising your heirloom varieties, where you're raising them for much longer than 6 to 8 weeks, in 6 to 8 weeks, by the time my raccoons have learned that I have chickens up there, we're butchering them. So if I raise the heirloom varieties and I'm raising them all summer, I usually lose more because they learn where to come for, and I usually have a lot more pressure on my chicken tractor that way. But it takes them a little to learn that, oh, there's food here, and then bring all their babies and their friends and their neighbors. Yeah. But if you don't want to get donkeys, those electric fences work really good, and they're fairly economical. Yeah. All the way back there. The minimum amount of space you need to grow chickens. You don't have to have any outside space. A lot of people will grow them inside of a building and just give them feed. But let me see. I don't know the exact answer for this, but you need, like for 70 chickens, you need about, I would say for each chicken, you probably need like a 3-foot square for them to waddle around in. And you know what? I wouldn't even stress about it too much. As long as you can move them and get them out of their own filth every day, you're gonna have enough space. Or you're gonna go out there and scoop it all up and give them fresh bedding every day. I'm not really a math person, like I don't do, like I'm just kind of like, oh, they need more space. I don't know all the measurements. Okay, right here.
Yeah, I'm new to fermenting pickles, and you said that in your book that you made fermented pickles, but what I'm seeing in the recipe is that you cook it for 3 days.
Okay, so,
Talk about the difference between fermenting and canning.
yes, I'm sorry. So
It's a high bird or what?
no, in the book that you have in your hands, those are canned pickle recipes. Those are not fermented recipes. My fermented pickle recipe is going to be in my cookbook that comes out next year. But I have a fermented pickle recipe on my YouTube channel, and it'll take you to a link where you can print out a printable recipe. So the difference between canned and fermented is with canned, you're adding your salt, your vinegar and your sugar and your salt, and then processing them in a water bath can. With fermenting, you're letting the bacteria preserve your pickle and you're storing them in a refrigerator. Does that help you out?
But there's a YouTube on your
They're on my YouTube channel. If you put Ruth Ann Zim into the YouTube search bar, my channel will come up. If you put Ruth Ann Zim fermented pickles, the video on fermented pickles will come up. And if you're eating for highest nutrition, the fermented pickles are what you want to make.
Okay, and after you're finished, would you say?
I would love to sign your book when I'm done here. Okay, right here.
So I have been fermenting pickles for years, but I feel like they don't stay nice and crispy. Like
Okay, so you're fermenting pickles and they don't stay nice and crispy. There probably is a variety that stays more crispy. I would talk to the people at Berlin Seeds. They would probably know that. The other thing is you pick them tiny. Like for fermenting, I want the pickles no bigger than my thumb. I leave them whole. Those will stay the most crispy. And then you take the blossom end off because that'll get soggy. And then when you're fermenting them, you can also put a grape leaf in. That'll keep them crispy. But the #1 key to fermenting pickles and keeping them crispy is pick them when they're tiny and intact, because the bigger the seed pods get, the mushier they get. Sometimes when I miss some that are too big, I'll put them into pickle spears. But we eat those first because those will continue to get soggier yeah, and they do get all limp and soggy. My family prefers the baby pickles. Yes. Yes, the regular cucumbers picked very, very tiny.
Is there a particular pickling cucumber
There is cucumbers that are pickling cucumbers. I don't ever even look at that. I plant like a straight 8 variety, and I just pick them when they're tiny. Okay, all the way in the back. Do I pluck or skin my chickens? Okay, so my grandma would be appalled that we use a plucker to pluck. We pluck our chickens because I like all that good fat that comes with the skin. But my grandma would never throw her chickens in a plucker. She would make us pluck them gently by hand because she's not throwing her chicken in that plucker and getting it all bruised up. So we pluck our chickens. That's a long way of saying we pluck our chickens. If I do ducks again, I will skin the ducks because they were a pain. Over here.
I have little kids, but I'm already concerned about making sure that this lifestyle is accessible to them when they're grown up. Is there anything that you guys have done to facilitate that for your older kids or to get them in the mindset so that they can continue doing it?
Okay, so this is a very good question. So her question was, I have little kids. I'm already thinking about how can I make sure that I'm giving them all the skills they need and making the lifestyle desirable for them. Accessible.
The cost of land and everything and making
Yes.
sure to continue doing it.
So I think because parenting is such a long game, and I don't know if anybody got to listen to Sean and Beth Doetry yesterday, but they are, like, I consider them our mentors. I don't know if they know that they're our mentors, but they are ahead of us in the child rearing game. And their older ones, their younger ones are about the same age as our older ones. And Sean said something at breakfast, and he didn't even know he impacted me, right? He said, we've learned that your children don't really turn around and thank you for everything that you've done until they're around 30 years old. And it breathed such life into me, because our oldest is 24, right? It breathed such life into me, and it re-inspired me that, yes, this is a long game. They're going to walk away. Our 18, you know how all teenagers tend to establish their independence in one way or the other, right? So our 18-year-old son, you're going to be surprised at how he established his independence. He established his independence by not eating my food. He got his license. He started walking in the door with a McDonald's bag. Oh, it hurt. It did. But guess what? It doesn't matter. I can harp on him every time he walks in that door and remind him how terrible that is for him. Or I can sit down and have a conversation with him while he stuffs his face with McDonald's and has an earbud in one ear. And I can still have a conversation with him, because in the end, he's probably going to be 30 before he says, Mom, can I have some of that pasture-raised beef from your freezer? It's a long game, and I think what goes around comes around. I used to say that when Elvin and I retire, I'm going to have a sheep, because a sheep will give me wool that I can spin and sit down and knit, and it'll give a little bit of sweet milk. And I won't need gallons and gallons of milk. I didn't realize how much I would love my grandbabies, that when I see them, all I want to do is send them home with some raw milk. I think I'll have a milk cow forever. But I say this to say, even our adult children that are feeding children of their own are not quite there yet. Convenience is still king, even though they were raised in it, but it doesn't matter. Relationship is what matters, and if they ask for milk, if they ask for half a gallon of milk, I'm sending them with a whole gallon, right? If they ask for some ground beef, I'm sending them with 10 pounds, because I want them to know how much better it is, but I'm not always criticizing them for their food choices. They have to choose that on their own. And I'm not exactly sure of the answer, but I think I'll know when I have more children that are over 30. But for right now, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and if they ask for milk, I'm giving them milk. If they ask for eggs, and I'll even say, hey, I have a lot of lettuce. Don't buy lettuce at the grocery store. Come get my lettuce. Because ultimately, relationship is the key, and we cannot hold my idea of a wholesome diet. I can't hold them to that. If they want to eat McDonald's, as long as they're coming and chatting with me, I've done something right. All right, I'll give John the last 10 minutes. Thank you, guys. It has been a pleasure to be here.
I wonder, back next year? You want her back? Your book. All right. Well, it's been a great time together. We have some T-shirts back in the back. I still have a few of my books, and I'll sign if you'd like. I got one more thing of salve. I don't know who the best catcher is out there, but I pitched it all the way back. So, any questions for me, thoughts, things you'd like to share before we wrap it up? You're welcome. Okay. This works fine. I mean, if it gets too big, it has its own problems, but we could probably handle 3,000 people. We think we had right around 2,500 yesterday. It's kind of difficult to get an exact count, but that's perfect, about right. Okay, see you next year.